Chapter 160. Hong Yi quickly reported. Auntie Zhang, who is in charge of placing the carpet, is here. She is waiting for young mistress to question her. The 3 maids who offended their mistress are also here. Young mistress, do you want to question them now? Sangwon pondered for a while and said, bring that Auntie Zhang here, I will question her personally. I can't be bothered to see the 3 maids. Tell the steward's wife in charge of this matter that these 3 girls don't have their master in their eyes. Give them 30 beatings with the paddle and 3 months' wages, and then throw them out and hand them over to the Tian couple who plant and cultivate flowers and plants. Tell them to keep their mouths shut if they don't want to be sold. Don't spread rumors about the inner residents, or else they will be silenced. Third old mistress Shi's attitude was clear. Sangwon must punish the 3 maids severely. Otherwise, how could third old mistress Shi's anger be appeased? She was injured, her maids were seriously injured. Damn it, not only did the 3 of them watch the show, they even talked back to Nanny Gui. They deserved to be unlucky. This was the first time Sangwon punished the servants so harshly since she took over the household. Hong Yi could not help but shudder. She quickly agreed, and went to pass the message. After giving the 3 maids a warning, she ordered 2 servants to escort them out. The 3 maids did not expect that they would get into such a big trouble, just by watching the show. They were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They knelt down and tugged at Hong Yi's skirt, begging and swearing, we won't dare to do it again. Hong Yi scoffed. You should be content. Laughing at your mistress and talking back to her elders. You should be thankful that she didn't sell you off. Young mistress is busy these few days, yet you are still causing trouble. You are seeking your own death. One of them went forward on her knees and hugged Hong Yi's leg, begging, Sister, please let us see young mistress. Young mistress has always been merciful. She will definitely spare us. We already know our mistakes. Please, sister, give us another chance. Yes, young mistress would never do such a cruel thing. Please, sister. Even if we go out, we should at least kowtow to young mistress. Sister, please grant us our wish. The 3 maidservants begged Hong Yi bitterly. Their faces were covered in tears, and they looked very pitiful. Hong Yi had never seen such a situation before. Although their statuses were not as high as hers, they were all girls at heart. She could not help but feel some sympathy for them. When the 3 maidservants saw that there was hope, it was as if they were grasping at the last straw, and they begged with all their might. Hong Yi finally couldn't take it anymore and sighed. Forget it, forget it. Just come in with me and kowtow to young mistress. Remember, don't spout nonsense. The 3 maidservants were overjoyed. They hurriedly kowtowed to express their gratitude and crawled up from the ground. Hong Yi glanced at them and frowned slightly. Tidy up your clothes and wipe your faces clean. How are you going to meet young mistress like this? Yes, big sister. Thank you for your advice, big sister. The 3 of them hurriedly tidied themselves up and looked at Hong Yi anxiously and timidly. This was their only chance. The 3 of them were very clear in their hearts, and were also very nervous. Let's go. Hong Yi's eyes darkened as she led them in. When they entered the room, before Hong Yi could say anything, the 3 maidservants impatiently knelt down with a plop, and kowtowed to beg for mercy. The words young mistress, please forgive us, and young mistress, please spare us, gave Sangwon a big fright. All of you shut up. Sangwon was shocked and shouted with a sullen face. She stared coldly at Hong Yi and asked, What's going on? Young mistress. Hong Yi hurriedly went forward and explained the situation briefly. We beg young mistress to spare us. We won't dare to do it again. We'll go and apologize to third mistress right now. The 3 maidservants cried and begged again. Sangwon was already annoyed enough. How could she endure this commotion? Her face instantly became very ugly. She glared fiercely at Hong Yi and said, What did I tell you to do? Didn't you hear clearly? Actually, Hong Yi dared to make the decision to let the 3 of them in on her own. Firstly, it was because she sympathized with them. Secondly, it was because she was relying on Sangwon's good temper. She didn't expect that she would hit an iron plate this time. Her face immediately turned red, and she was incomparably embarrassed. She moved her lips but didn't dare to make a sound. Servants! Sangwon sternly shouted. Why aren't you taking these people away? The three maidservants' daily task was to sweep the floor. They had never served their mistress closely, and were completely unaware of the rules. They only knew that this was their last chance. Their fate was in the hands of their young mistress. In a moment of desperation, they quickly went forward on their knees and hugged Sangwon's legs. They pulled on her skirt and begged pitifully, just like how they begged Hongyi earlier. "You! How dare you? Why aren't you letting go of me?" Sangwon was embarrassed and angry. It wasn't good for her to fight with these servants. If they tore her clothes in the process, she wouldn't be able to face anyone. Hongyi and the group of maidservants who had obeyed the order were all shocked. They shouted, "Impudent!" and hurriedly went forward to pull the maidservants and pry their hands away. How could the maidservants be willing to let go? When they saw that Sangwon didn't push them, they didn't know if it was because it was inconvenient for her to lower herself to their level and argue with them. Instead, they thought that she was soft-hearted and couldn't bear to do it. All of their spirits were lifted, and they held on tightly to her skirt as they cried and begged, refusing to let go no matter what. The group of maidservants were anxious like ants on a hot pan. They hated them to death in their hearts, and Hongyi was extremely angry. "What's going on?" Shifengju stepped in from outside and saw this absurd scene. Seeing the group of servants pulling on Sangwon without any restraint, he couldn't help but become angry. Shifengju's stern shout shocked everyone. Taking advantage of the moment of distraction, one of the maidservants was finally pulled away by the crowd. The other two regained their senses and continued to hold on tightly to her as they begged, "Young mistress, please spare us. Please, young mistress." "Impudent!" Shifengju stepped forward and kicked one of the maidservants. He coldly said, "Still not letting go? Who is young mistress? Who are you people? How dare you be so disrespectful to young mistress? If you don't let go, I'll immediately drag you away and beat you to death." The two maidservants' faces turned pale, and they subconsciously loosened their grip. They were immediately dragged away and escorted out to await their punishment. The room suddenly became silent, and everyone didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Sangwon was extremely angry. She stared at Hongyi and said, "What are you still standing there for? Why aren't you going out to give the order? Are you waiting for me to go personally?" Among the few maidservants, Hongyi was the most honest and honest. Sangwon felt that being honest had its benefits. At the very least, she would not slack off in her work, so she had never said anything about it. Who would have thought that she was so easily swayed? It was fine to ask her to do things alone, but not when it involved others. It was no wonder that Mama Li almost never ordered her to do things alone. "Yes, young mistress." Hongya's face turned pale and she hurriedly went out. "How are you? Are you all right?" Shifengju waved his hand and ordered everyone to leave. He stepped forward and held Sangwon's hand with concern. His attitude changed so quickly that Sangwon was dazed for a moment. She smiled and said, "I'm fine. Why did you come back?" "It's good that you're fine." Shifengju sat down next to her and said with a smile, "I was at second uncle's place talking to second uncle and third uncle for a while. I was afraid that something might have happened to you, so I came back. These three maidservants must be the three from this morning, right? You too. Why did you see them out of the blue? You could have just told them how to deal with them." Sangwon quietly retracted her hand and sighed with a smile. "When did I want to see them? It's all because of Hongyi." Shifengju was stunned and laughed. "No wonder you spoke to her so fiercely just now. Hongyi is too honest, no wonder she couldn't resist being begged." Sangwon rolled her eyes at him and said, "Isn't that so? I'm the only one who's ruthless. No matter how much she begged, she couldn't do it." Shifengju smiled and said, "What are you thinking? I didn't mean that. It's good that you're like this. From what I see, you're not ruthless enough. Otherwise you wouldn't have used Hongyi." Sangwon spread her hands and said, "What can I do? Third aunt is in a hurry to move. Mama Li and Xingji are busy. If they don't take care of things personally, I won't be at ease." She sighed softly as she said that. Shifengju hurriedly asked, "How did it go?" Sangwon then told him what happened when she went to see third old mistress Shi. "It's been hard on you." Shifengju gazed at her and said gently, "Wanyang, don't take mother's and third aunt's words to heart. At least work hard for these few days. I know you can't be blamed for this. If you're unhappy, he said with a smile, you can come at me. Sangwon's face heated up, and she hurriedly avoided his gaze. After a while, she smiled and said, actually, you can't blame mother and third aunt for this. It's my negligence. I was the one who ordered them to do it. If they didn't do it well, I'm naturally responsible. Mother didn't accuse me wrongly. Shi Fengju was originally worried that she would feel wronged, but after hearing her say that, he immediately felt relieved and smiled. It's good that you can think that way. But then again, there are so many things to do these 2 days. How can you take care of everything by yourself? Mother and third aunt should be more understanding. After this busy period, let's stay at the country house for 2 days and relax. How about that? Sangwon's head jumped and she quickly smiled. It's almost the new year. How can we still have time to go out? These few days, we should prepare the gifts to send out and receive our relatives and friends. We should also prepare the incense, candles, money, paper, wax, and oil for worshipping our ancestors. You're right. Then let's go after the new year. We have a country house with blooming plum blossoms. I'll bring you there to admire the plum blossoms. Shi Fengju smiled again. Although they didn't look at each other, Sangwon could feel his burning gaze. She was forced to the point where she almost couldn't take it anymore. Her heart was flustered and she didn't know what he would say if she rejected him again. Thus, she simply nodded and agreed. Seeing that he was about to say something, Sangwon smiled and said, that Nanny Zhang is still waiting to be questioned. We have to quickly answer to third aunt. Shi Fengju nodded and said, you're right. Then let her in. When Nanny Zhang came in, she didn't hesitate. She answered everything that was asked and kowtowed to admit her mistake. It's all the old slave's fault. Yesterday, the old slave had already laid out a felt carpet, but later the felt carpet became dirty. It was third madam's servant girl who asked the old slave to take it away and change it to a new one. At that time, it was a little late. The old slave took it away and forgot to take a new one. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen this morning? The old slave deserves to die. The old slave deserves to die. Chapter 161. Sangwon didn't know what else to say after hearing her words. She reprimanded. This is your duty. How could you forget it so easily? If you have a bad memory, you should resign from this job. Also, you were the one who made the mistake. How could you push the blame to the people around third madam? You should have taken the initiative to change it when you saw it was dirty. She reminded you with good intentions, but you're complaining about her in a roundabout way. This servant has misspoken. This servant has misspoken. Old Madame Zhang gently slapped her own mouth twice and pleaded. This servant has misspoken. Young mistress is right to reprimand me. From now on, this servant will do her job well. Young mistress, please forgive this servant this time. Since it was unintentional and she was old, Sangwon originally planned to reprimand her as a warning. At most, she would take away 2 months of her salary. Unexpectedly, Shi Fengju calmly said, a mistake is a mistake. If everyone begs for forgiveness after this, what rules are there to speak of? As he spoke, he called Hong Yi into the room and asked how the 3 maidservants would be dealt with. Hong Yi hurriedly replied respectfully. Shi Fengju then said, since this old woman is old, 10 strokes of the cane will be enough. As for the rest, just like the other 3 maidservants, take her away. Young master, old slave. Old Madame Zhang was shocked. What? Do you still have something to say? Shi Fengju coldly stared at her. Old Madame Zhang's lips moved, but when she met Shi Fengju's icy gaze, she swallowed her words in fear. If Sangwon was alone, she would still have the courage to make a scene. However, Shi Fengju was here. Although this young master usually didn't care about the matters of the inner residence, there was no one in the residence who wasn't afraid of him. Old Madame Zhang's face was ashen. She kowtowed and silently got up to follow the young maidservant out. Did she still have something to say? Of course she did. Old Madame Zhang cried out in her heart, but she could only shout in her stomach. She couldn't say it out loud. Yesterday, when it was almost dinner time, Lan Xiang went over to the guest room to curry favor with third madam's maidservants. When she walked past the felt carpet, One of them accidentally stumbled and dropped her hand warmer, dirtying a large part of the carpet. She even let hot ashes burn a small part of it. Lan Xiang was kind and exclaimed, "How can you be so dirty? How can third madam walk?" The servant girl was also scared, so she smiled and asked her to change to a new one. Seeing that it was almost dinner time, old Madame Zhang didn't want to agree. She wanted to find an excuse to change it tomorrow. Who knew that Lan Xiang also smiled and helped her? She could coax the new servant girl, but how could she coax Lan Xiang? He had no choice but to agree. Who would have thought that Lan Xiang would catch up with her after she walked a short distance with the blanket wrapped around her? Lan Xiang smiled and said that since she had something to do at the storeroom, she would help her change the blanket on the way to avoid delaying her dinner. Lan Xiang happily agreed. Who would have thought that after the incident this morning, that wretched servant girl would anxiously run over and apologize to her, saying that she was too busy last night and forgot about it. She even stamped her feet and sighed. How can things be so coincidental? Old Madame Zhang couldn't say anything. Lan Xiang clearly had good intentions, so she couldn't drag her out to complain. Moreover, Miss Biao was protective of her, and Lan Xiang was her confidant. She didn't dare to provoke her. She could only curse her bad luck. Who told her to be lazy? Seeing old Madame Zhang leave, Shi Fengju smiled at Sangwon and said, "Do you think I'm unreasonable?" Sangwon had a little thought, but how could she say it in front of Shi Fengju? She smiled and shook her head. "You helped me deal with her. I can't thank you enough." Shi Fengju sighed. "You're still too soft-hearted. I know you didn't have the heart to punish her because she was old and had a good attitude when admitting her mistakes. But think about it, this old woman was the main culprit in this matter. You punished the 3 maidservants severely, but let this old woman off lightly. What would the servants think? If those 3 maidservants were to find out, I'm afraid they would be even more dissatisfied and hold a grudge in their hearts. Although you've chased them to the flower beds to do odd jobs, in the end, they're still in the manor. How could you control their mouths from gossiping outside? It would be better to deal with them all together. No one would be able to say anything." After Sangwon heard this, her face turned pale and she broke out in a cold sweat. Shi Fengju was right. She was too soft-hearted and almost made a mistake. If she really let this old woman off, who knew what the servants in the manor would say? Sangwon raised her head and looked at Shi Fengju in a daze. She couldn't say anything for a while. Shi Fengju saw her silly look and couldn't help but laugh. "You can't be blamed. It's good to have a good heart. All right, let's have lunch first. It won't be too late to explain to third aunt in the afternoon." As he said this, he asked Hong Yi to send someone to deliver the food. Hong Yi timidly looked at Sangwon and hurriedly went to give the order. She also asked a servant to bring water to help the 2 of them wash their hands. Sangwon sighed to herself. These days he had helped her too much. Coupled with the fact that her prestige was rising day by day, her subordinates were much more respectful towards her, and no one dared to be rude to her anymore. Everything was going smoothly, and her vigilance had gradually relaxed. She was no longer as meticulous as before, and would only speak her mind after thinking for a while. If Shi Fengju hadn't enlightened her today, she wouldn't have realized her change. "Thank you." Sangwon didn't know what to say. She silently wiped her sweat. Shi Fengju deeply stared at her with his deep eyes and said, "There's no need for thanks between us. You're my wife." Sangwon lowered her eyes and didn't say anything. Recently she was often like this. He would block her with just a few words. She didn't know what this person was thinking. Sangwon's heart, which had just calmed down, became chaotic again. During the meal, she was absent-minded. Shi Fengju didn't seem to be affected. He was neither hurried nor slow and was very calm. After the meal, the 2 of them drank tea and talked in the warmth pavilion. It's hard for Hong Yi to be independent. Xingji and Luya will have to get married in a few years' time. I think you should pick 2 or 3 witty maidservants and let Mama Li and Xingji take care of them. They'll be able to help you in the future. Shi Fengju casually said with a smile when they talked about today's matter. Sangwon couldn't help but feel even more frustrated after hearing that. Her lips curled into a self-mocking smile as she said softly, "Young master and Mama Li can discuss this matter. I can't do anything about it." "What do you mean?" Shi Fengju was confused and was stunned. Sangwon suddenly felt wronged. She didn't feel much about what Wang and third old mistress Shi said. But at this moment, she felt a lump in her throat. Her heart felt heavy and uncomfortable. Why was he so nice to her? What was he thinking? Young master, have you really forgotten? Sangwon raised her head and glanced at him before saying softly. After the new year, I should probably leave soon, right? Young master, you don't have to tell me what arrangements you have. Shi Fengju's body trembled and his smile froze. Impossible, Shi Fengju said without thinking. I won't let you leave. Sangwon didn't say anything. She looked at him quietly with a calm expression. Her watery eyes were clear, gentle and calm. I'm serious. Shi Fengju suddenly opened his arms and hugged her tightly. He pressed his head against her neck and said softly, Wanyang, don't leave me. Wanyang, please stay. Sangwon felt a sudden pain in her heart. This time, she let him hug her without struggling. She smiled bitterly. You want me to stay, but how do you plan to settle me down? Shi Fengju was delighted when he heard that there was room for negotiation. He raised his head and stared at her. Of course you'll be my wife. That will never change. Is that so? Sangwon said lightly. Then what about your cousin from the Gu family? What about her? Shi Fengju's heart sank when he heard about Gu Fangzi. After a moment of silence, he said, She won't be able to surpass you. Don't worry. I don't. Sangwon looked straight at Shi Fengju and said calmly, Young master, I don't feel at ease at all. You don't believe that I'll treat you well? I don't know. Sangwon shook her head and said softly, You were childhood sweethearts with her. You were prejudiced against me because of her. You couldn't wait for me to disappear from your life immediately. Now in just half a year, you want me to stay and say that you'll treat me well. You say that no one can surpass me, including her. Young master, if you were me, would you believe yourself? If someone else appeared in the future, how would you treat me? This is different. Shi Fengju retorted. When he met Sangwon's eyes, he found that he couldn't refute her. She wasn't wrong at all. If he were her, he wouldn't believe it either. But he was a man after all. He couldn't say that he had been deceived and played by a woman for so many years. He couldn't tell a woman that he loved the wrong person. It's just different. Shi Fengju pondered for a while. He felt that it was fine to say it. He would only lose face this once. You're different from her. Wanyang, I know very well what I'm doing. I've never been so clear about it. The one I like is you. Wanyang, I really like you. Gu Fangzi, perhaps it's because we grew up together, but before you appeared, I didn't differentiate what kind of feelings I had for her. But now I know how I feel about you. You're the wife I want to spend the rest of my life with. Wanyang, don't leave me. I'll treat you well. Don't tell me you haven't felt my feelings for you all these days. But Gu Fangzi finally married into our family. Sangwon smiled bitterly. Shi Fengju was also very regretful. If it weren't for Gu Jin's sudden death, Gu Fangzi definitely wouldn't have married into the family. Then, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Not to mention Sangwon, even he didn't know how to treat Gu Fangzi now. Once some people couldn't face it, they really couldn't face it. Even meeting her made him feel uncomfortable. However, her identity now was his concubine. I didn't expect things to turn out like this, Shi Fengju said with a headache. Wanyang, I won't let her bully you. You're the boss of this family. Sangwon sighed secretly and didn't say anything. Shi Fengju didn't hear her voice for a while. He couldn't help but look at her suspiciously. Seeing her calm expression, he didn't know if she was satisfied or not. He held her arm tightly and said softly, Wanyang, I'll take it as your promise. You won't leave me. Sangwon glanced at him lightly and said, Do I have the right to say no if you want me to stay? You insist that I stay, so I can only stay. I'll be a respectful husband and wife with you. I'll fulfill my responsibilities as a wife, serve you, serve mother, and take care of this family for you. Chapter 162. Shi Fengju's eyes narrowed and his face turned cold. He said in a deep voice, Treat each other with respect? Just like a while ago? You think that's not good? Sangwon raised her eyebrows in surprise. But I didn't hear you say it's not good. I don't like to scheme against others and I don't have such a high level of skill or effort. Even if you promise me that you like me. What about Gu Fangzi? I believe that everyone knows how much she likes you, right? I believe that you know her temper better than I do, right? I think that you wouldn't want the house to be in turmoil and a foul atmosphere in the future. Shi Fengju finally understood the meaning behind her words and asked faintly, "Then what do you want?" "Let her leave the Shi family," Sangwon said without hesitation. "As long as she's here, it's like a thorn in my heart. I can't calm down. I can't say no to you taking in a concubine, but she's different. She's the only one I can't accept. If you were me, I don't think you'd be willing to accept her either. Since she's not that important to you, let her leave. If you want her, I'm willing to fulfill your wish. But if you want me to stay with her, forgive me for not being able to do it. Then, after the new year, when she's done with her mourning, I'll pass the responsibility of managing the house to her. I'll ask my mother to let me move to the farmstead for a while. Don't even think about it." Hearing that she was leaving, Shi Fengju felt a sense of loss. He gritted his teeth and said, "I won't let you leave. You can't leave." Sangwon said faintly, "Mother actually dotes on me. She's very easy to talk to. Perhaps Gu Fangzi can't wait for me to leave? As long as I mention it, I dare say that she'll immediately prepare a carriage for me. As for you, you can't stay at home every day, right? When you're away, what can you do about it?" Shi Fengju was speechless for a moment. He was a smart person and could understand many things easily. He didn't want her to leave, so she naturally couldn't leave. However, he couldn't do anything about what she wanted to do to him. Now that she had a firm foothold in the household, and her second brother was Ji Yuan. Even if she didn't pass this exam, who knew if she would pass the next one? Even if he did not take the exam, Ho Kei would still be a county magistrate. Just from this point alone, the Shi family would not be able to do anything to her. What's more, he couldn't bear to be so cruel to her. If he insisted on keeping her, he would only be keeping her as a person. Whether she was gentle or virtuous, it was all on the surface, nothing more. But he liked her so much that he wanted more than just her body. He liked to see her gentle smile, liked to have her chat with him, listen to her soft and pleasant voice, and liked to see her tranquil smile, which made his heart feel warm. He had only ever felt this way from her. Shi Fengju was finally defeated inside. If she hadn't married into the family, then everything would be fine. But now that she has married into the family, letting her leave. Shi Fengju shook his head. "Mother won't agree. She herself wouldn't agree." Sangwon said, "The matter of her marrying into the family wasn't made public, so not many outsiders know about it. With the Shi family's financial resources, it shouldn't be difficult to arrange a suitable marriage for her outside the family. Mother has always doted on you, and has always felt wrong to have her as a concubine. As long as you can deal with this matter properly, Mother won't say anything." Shi Fengju was silent. He admitted that Sangwon was right, but she had avoided the most important person, which was Gu Fangzi herself. If Gu Fangzi didn't want to leave, he couldn't force her to leave. If she made a fuss, Mother would definitely feel guilty and would want her to stay. He really didn't have full confidence in this matter, and it wasn't that he wanted her to stay. Sangwon was secretly disappointed, but she didn't expect him to give her an answer immediately. If he promised her right now, she would feel uneasy. She gently pried his hand away and forced a smile. "It's getting late. I have to go to Third Aunt's place, then go to Jichui Tower and Han Shuang Pavilion to take a look." After saying that, she turned around and walked out. Shi Fengju heard her call Hong Yi over and instruct, "Watch the room carefully. Serve young master tea well. If anyone replies, tell them to go to Jichui Tower." Following the sound of light footsteps, she left with a young servant girl. Hong Yi gently lifted the curtain and wanted to come in to serve, but Shi Fengju waved his hand to signal her to leave. Hong Yi hurriedly bowed and retreated. The room was quiet, but Shi Fengju's mind was in a mess. He could understand her concerns. She was soft on the outside and stubborn on the inside, which made him feel both love and helplessness. However, he definitely couldn't agree to let her go. He had already done something that he regretted, which was keeping his cousin. Now he couldn't do another thing that he would regret, which was letting her go. Shi Fengju couldn't come up with a perfect solution, no matter how hard he thought about it. Suddenly, he felt that the room was stuffy and unbearable, making him irritable for no reason. He stood up and left without saying a word. Sangwon went to Wang's place as if nothing had happened, and reported the result of the punishment. After Wang nodded in agreement, she went to Third Shi family's old mistress and apologized to her again and again, telling her about the punishment for the servant girl. Third Shi family's old mistress had never been a magnanimous person when it came to punishing servants. She still felt that Sangwon's punishment was a little too light. From her point of view, servants who didn't have their masters in their hearts and didn't treat their masters with respect were the most despicable servants. They deserved to be beaten to death. On second thought, it was probably because it was almost the new year, so she didn't want to be too strict and spoil her good fortune. Thus, she didn't show any dissatisfaction and smiled at Sangwon politely, saying things like, "Thank you for your hard work," and "worry." Seeing that the matter was finally over, Sangwon secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She quickly smiled and said, "Third aunt, don't worry. In the future, I'll definitely discipline everyone in the household properly. Nothing like this will happen again. Oh right, by tomorrow evening at the latest, third aunt and third uncle should be able to move in. I'll get someone to bring you over then. Time is tight, so if there's anything missing, please let me know later." Third Shi family's old mistress was overjoyed and smiled. "Wan Yang is indeed capable. It's fine as long as we can move in tomorrow. We don't need to be particular." Sangwon smiled and took her leave, heading to Jichui Tower and Han Shuangge to check on their progress. In Peony Park, Lan Xiang brought back the news of Sangwon being reprimanded by Wang early in the morning. Gu Fengzi was overjoyed and sneered. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't feel good after being away from home for so many years, right? Third aunt has never been a kind person. I'd like to see how Sangwon is going to deal with this. That's right. She's made too many enemies in this household. Her days in the future won't be easy. Lan Xiang chimed in happily. Following Gu Fengzi's words, she carefully inquired about the situation over there. Unexpectedly, the matter ended with the punishment of 3 maidservants and an old woman. Third Shi family's old mistress didn't say much, and even Wang didn't punish Sangwon. Since when did aunt become so magnanimous? She's always prideful. How could she just let this matter go so easily? Gu Fengzi didn't believe it and stared at Lan Xiang. Have you found out? Lan Xiang didn't dare to say it, but in the end, she braced herself and said, It seems that young master spoke up for young mistress in front of old mistress, so. What kind of young mistress is she? That be *tch. Gu Fengzi spat angrily and her face turned ferocious. I knew it. Aunt's personality wouldn't be like this. Big cousin, he's the one protecting her again. The person he should be protecting is me. Since when did he throw me to the back of his mind and stop caring about me? Gu Fengzi thought to herself with jealousy. Sangwon, don't be too happy. Men love whoever they see. Even if he's protecting you now, one day, you'll end up like me, abandoned by him like a pair of worn-out shoes. Young miss, do you think that old maid Zhang will betray this servant? Lan Xiang timidly asked. The reaction of the 3 maidservants was unexpected, but it was clear that Lan Xiang was involved in the incident with the felt blanket. As long as the old servant mentioned her name, Sangwon would definitely suspect something even if others did not dare to do so. Gu Fengzi saw that old maid Zhang was only thinking about her, and couldn't help but feel disgusted. She glared at old maid Zhang and said unhappily, Don't worry. In this manner, there aren't many people as stupid as those 3 servants. Of course old maid Zhang knows that the more she says, the more mistakes she'll make. Humph, if she mentioned you, do you think you'd still be here? I'm afraid you'd have been dragged away by Ning Garden for questioning. With such an opportunity to punish her, would Ning Garden let it go so easily? In the future, be more alert when doing things. Gu Fengzi ordered. Yes, young miss. Lan Xiang's heart finally relaxed. After saying those words, Sangwon was a little nervous. She didn't know how to face Shi Fengju, so she simply refused to leave Jichui Tower under the pretext of supervising the workers. Mama Li felt sorry for her, and asked her to leave several times, but she refused and insisted on staying. Mama Lee had no choice but to let her do as she pleased. When it was time for dinner, Mama Lee smiled and advised, "Young mistress, it's getting late. You should quickly go back and accompany young master for dinner. We servants also have to go eat later. After dinner, we'll come back to work for a while. You don't have to come. Don't worry, the old slave will keep a close eye on you." Sangwon felt guilty and quickly said with a smile, "If that's the case, then let's all stop. Old maid Zhang, let's go back together and talk after dinner." With more people around, Sangwon felt that it would lessen the awkwardness a little. Unexpectedly, Mama Lee shook her head and said with a smile, "We servants won't be going back. We'll go to the kitchen with everyone and have some hot soup to heat up the rice. It's important to hurry up and finish the work. Don't worry about these trivial matters and quickly go back. Young master is still waiting for you. Old slave can handle everything here, so don't worry." Sangwon didn't have any more excuses and could only agree with a smile. She walked back with heavy steps. Unexpectedly, Shi Fengju brought back a message that he wouldn't be coming back for dinner tonight and would be eating with his two uncles in the second branch. Sangwon felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. She hurriedly ordered the servants to set up the table. After dinner, she rested for a while before washing up and going to bed. The moment she laid down, other than a temporary sense of relaxation, she was more nervous than nervous. There was also an indescribable feeling of loss and gain. Chapter 163. She did not know how to describe it as she had never experienced it before. Despite living two lives, this was the first time she had such a feeling. Wan Yang. Shi Fengju tenderly kissed her cheeks and tidied up her messy hair before asking softly, "Are you tired?" Sangwon blushed and shook her head gently before nodding again. Shi Fengju saw that she was still in a daze and could not help but laugh. The two cleaned up and lay down again. Shi Fengju sighed comfortably and caressed her smooth and tender cheeks. "Wan Yang, you're finally my wife." He wrapped his arm around the back of her neck and hugged her tightly in his embrace with the other hand around her waist. "Fengju, don't leave me." Sangwon sighed softly and snuggled into his embrace. "I won't." Shi Fengju was happy and softened. He hugged her even more tightly. "Wan Yang, I'll love you and protect you for the rest of your life." Sangwon looked up at him and smiled softly. He was her husband and also her sky. She was content with just a few words from him. "Wan Yang, how can I bear to treat you badly?" Shi Fengju felt even more tenderness and love for her. He lowered his head and gazed at her eyes gently and affectionately. He smiled softly. "It's late, let's sleep." Sangwon snuggled up to him and gently closed her eyes. Soon his breathing became heavy and even. It was obvious that he had fallen asleep. Sangwon gently opened her eyes and was in a daze. His arms were hugging her tightly. She tried to struggle, but it did not loosen at all. She did not dare to move, and could only let him hug her like that. It was the first time that Sangwon had such intimate contact with a man, so she was not used to it. She felt a little awkward. She turned her face slightly and changed the direction she was facing. The residual pain came from time to time, reminding her that everything just now was real and not a dream. Sangwon was absent-minded for a moment and sighed silently. Divorce had never been her best choice. Even the words he said on the wedding night were just a delaying tactic. Actually, she was still holding on to a tiny sliver of hope. She was not alone. Her parents doted on her so much. Her brother and sister-in-law had gone through so much trouble to get her married, but she had brought back a divorce letter for them. This was too cruel. How could a girl from the Sang family be abandoned so easily? What's more, wasn't it the same no matter who she married? All she wanted was to live a peaceful life. Shi Fengju was a gentleman, so he was a good candidate. When her second brother was poisoned by Ji Yuan, she became even more determined. Having a younger sister who had divorced and returned home would more or less affect her second brother's reputation, so she couldn't leave so easily. At this moment, she had the capital to stay. She knew that her mother-in-law would not let her leave for the sake of her second brother. She was only uncertain about him. After probing him many times, she gradually came to a conclusion. Step by step, she would gain a foothold in this household. What she wanted to do was to fulfill her responsibilities as a wife. Then the two of them would live in harmony, treat each other with respect, and live a peaceful life. She did not have any extravagant hopes for anything else. She had been thinking about what she was going to say today for a long time. It would be best if Gu Fengzi left in the end. Even if there was a sudden change in the situation and she stayed, he would feel a bit guilty towards her because of what he said today. With the power she had painstakingly built up and the protection of her second brother, she would be able to gain a foothold in the household and live a good life. Gu Fengzi would not be able to easily hurt her. That was enough. It was only a matter of time before she handed herself over to him. She did not plan on being a fake couple with him for the rest of her life. She still needed a son to strengthen her position. Moreover, this was also the duty of a wife, wasn't it? She would be a good wife. After being reborn, she would not be so naive and would not easily trust others. Everything she had to plan for herself, fight for it, and achieve it one by one. If she was destined to be entangled with Gu Fengzi for the rest of her life, then she would just have to wait and see who would have a longer life. Perhaps who would have the last laugh. Past life, present and future, the intertwined time and space, messy memories and countless connections and thoughts made Sangwon's imagination run wild for most of the night before she fell asleep in a daze. When the dust seemed to have settled, she felt empty and uncontrollable. Sangwon was awakened by Shi Fengju. She was originally a light sleeper, so when he caressed her face, she woke up and gently opened her hazy eyes. "You're awake." Shi Fengju lowered his head and smiled. He leaned over and gently kissed her cheek. "Wanyang, you're so beautiful." Sangwon's face blushed. She shyly avoided his gaze and softly said, "It's daybreak, we should get up. There are still many things to do today." As she spoke, she hugged the brocade quilt and sat up. Her lotus root-like slender white hands reached out from the quilt to take the clothes at the side. Shi Fengju put his hands behind his neck and looked at her with a smile. His heart was full of joy and satisfaction. Now that she was truly his, he could look at her however he wanted. Naturally, he would not be polite. The woman in front of him had skin whiter than snow and was as beautiful as a flower. Her black satin hair flowed softly down her back. A few strands brushed past her small and round shoulders, adding to her charm. Her delicate little face was full of charm. Her cheeks were fragrant and her hair was like clouds. Shi Fengju could not hold himself back. He stretched out his long arms and hugged her. He laughed softly and said, "Wanyang, you don't have to greet me so early anyway." Mama Li and Xingji saw that the two masters did not wake up at the usual time. Although they were a little surprised, they quickly understood. Young mistress must be very tired these past 2 days. You should all be quiet and not disturb young mistress. Xingji, let's quickly go to Jichui Tower and Han Shuang Pavilion. Luya, you stay here and wait. When young mistress and young master wake up, we'll see what arrangements they have. Mama Li ordered. Luya could not wait to agree and quickly agreed. Her heart was a little chaotic. Young mistress' scream last night made her unable to sleep well. Today she did not wake up on time. Could it be that something had really happened? Luya waited restlessly and anxiously. It was not good to knock on the door, so she could only wait. The maidservants were all curious. They looked at each other and did not know what had happened to older sister Luya. In the bedroom, the two people had played around enough. They lay down and talked for a while before getting up. Looking at the messy bedsheets, Sangwon could not help but feel embarrassed. They had already changed the bedsheets last night. After this morning's ruckus, they had to change them again. Just let the maidservants do it. Let's go out. Shi Fengju did not think much of it. He hugged her and chuckled in her ear. Don't worry. I've already put away the bedsheets from last night. I'll find a chance to take them back to the study to wash. No one will see. Sangwon was startled at first, but then she understood what he meant. There was blood on the bedsheets. Of course no one could see it. Her face heated up. She glared at him coquettishly and gave a low hum. Shi Fengju chuckled. The two of them were together for the first time. It was too fresh and wonderful. Shi Fengju wished he could stick to her and never separate again. Stop fooling around. Sangwon pushed him and casually adjusted the bedsheets. She listened to him and let the maidservants clean it up. The two of them opened the door and went out. Luya rushed up and stared at Sangwon. Young mistress, are you all right? Sangwon was mentally ill. How could she bear her gaze in question? Her face immediately turned red. She subconsciously hid behind Shifengju and said with difficulty, You lass. Why are you making such a fuss? Shifengju hugged her and patted her gently. He glared at Luya and said, Why aren't you helping your master comb her hair and wash her face? Luya was actually not afraid of Shifengju. She glanced at them suspiciously. She felt that the young master and young mistress were a little strange today. As for what was strange, she could not tell. She asked, Young mistress, are you really all right? Last night, didn't you say you knocked your head last night? Young mistress, does it still hurt? This servant has already prepared the ointment. Do you want me to apply it for young mistress first? No need, no need. Sangwon felt weak and wanted to find a hole to hide in. She hurriedly smiled and said, There's really no need. It's already healed. Chapter 164. He saw that Luya was still looking at Sangwon suspiciously, looking like she wouldn't stop until she found a big bump. Shifengju was both angry and amused. He glared at her and said, What are you still standing there for? Are you stupid? Yes, this servant will ask someone to fetch water. Luya was shocked and hurriedly agreed. This servant girl is quite loyal to you. Shifengju smiled at Sangwon. Sangwon helplessly shook her head and found it funny. Shifengju quickly washed his face and combed his hair. He then walked around Sangwon and sat next to her. He smiled as he watched the maidservants tie her hair into a bun, wash her face, and put on makeup for her. When the maidservant saw him next to her, she was so nervous that she almost lost her grip on the comb. Usually, she would joke around with Sangwon, but this time, she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Everyone was secretly surprised. When did eldest young master become so clingy with eldest young mistress? The corners of eldest young mistress's eyes and lips were also smiling. She had a bashful expression and from time to time, she would look at eldest young master and smile. These two people. Why were they even sweeter than when they were newlyweds? Everyone secretly thought that it was strange, and then threw it aside. Luya was the only one who found it strange. When she led the maidservants to clean up the bedroom, she saw that the bedsheets had clearly been changed. However, she couldn't find where the new bedsheets were. Luya couldn't help but feel confused. Although she was inexperienced, she wasn't at the age where she didn't know anything. Looking at the messy bedsheets, her mind suddenly quivered. She couldn't help but let out an ah sound. The maidservants looked over in surprise. Luya hurriedly waved her hand and said with a smile, It's nothing, it's nothing. Hurry up and change the bedsheets and clean the room. Later, when the weather is good, take the bedding and pillows out to dry. After giving her instructions, she went out to look for Sangwon. She was itching to ask if it was what she thought. However, Shifengju was always by Sangwon's side. Even though Luya's heart was itching, how could she have the chance to ask? She was so anxious that she paced back and forth restlessly. Shifengju and Sangwon quickly noticed her abnormality. Shifengju could not help but feel angry. This girl had not been normal since the morning. Luya. Shifengju shouted in a deep voice. Go and see if breakfast is ready. Prepare to serve it. Young master, I've already asked someone to prepare it. Luya said hurriedly, but she refused to move her feet. Shifengju said with a sullen face. Girl, why are you walking around so early in the morning? What happened? If there's anything, just say it quickly. Sangwon saw that he was about to get angry, and gave him a look of annoyance. She smiled and said, Why are you getting angry with a girl? Luya, why aren't you rushing them? Hurry up and prepare breakfast. Yes, young mistress. Luya could only suppress the questions in her heart, and wait for the right opportunity to ask before she left. Don't be angry. She's just concerned about me. Sangwon's face was slightly hot. She must have been frightened by her scream last night. Shifengju also remembered this matter. He sneered and glanced at her deeply. You're a loyal girl. But you're a bit too loyal. Do you think I bullied you? Sangwon rolled her eyes at him and did not say anything. She thought to herself, aren't you bullying me? Shi Fengju looked at her angry face from the side and couldn't help but feel happy. He looked at her from time to time with a smile, happy and content. After tidying up, the two of them went to the side hall to have breakfast. All of you can leave. There's no need to wait here. Shi Fengju had finally won the beauty's heart. Of course, he only wanted the two of them to be alone and affectionate. How could he let others get in the way? Sangwon saw that his eyes were fixed on her, as if something was jumping in them. She knew that he was up to no good, but she was already his, so how could she refuse? She smiled and let him be. Luya and the others accepted the order and silently left. Wan Yang. Shi Fengju couldn't wait and pulled her to his side. He rubbed his cheek against her face and smiled intimately. What do you want to eat? I'll get it for you. Sangwon looked at him angrily. She picked up a piece of chicken steamed buns, which he always liked, and gently placed it on a small plate in front of him. She said resentfully, I know what you like, but you have to ask me what I like. Shi Fengju was happy to hear her acting coquettishly in front of him. He also felt a little guilty about what she said. He hugged her and smiled. Good one, Yang. I'll remember what you like in the future. You're so good to me, so I have to return the favor. As he said this, he urged Sangwon to choose what she liked. Sangwon loved the 1-inch-long dumplings filled with tofu, fungus, and ham the most, so she said with a smile. Shi Fengju picked one up and fed it to her. Here, I've served you once. Are you satisfied now? Sangwon giggled. She subconsciously glanced back. When she saw that there was no one outside, she opened her mouth and ate it. The two of them played with each other affectionately for a while. Sangwon was still worried about paying her respects to the third branch, so she urged him to hurry up. Only then did Shi Fengju resentfully stop. After breakfast, the two of them rinsed their mouths. They put on their feather cloaks and went to Wang's place. Why are you so late today? Shi Yumei was already in front of Wang. She couldn't help but complain when she saw that they were late. There were a lot of things to do yesterday. I'm tired. Shi Fengju smiled faintly. Shi Yumei rolled her eyes at him and snorted. She was very dissatisfied that Sangwon didn't respond. There were a lot of things to do these 2 days. Wan Yang has really worked hard. Wang said, but no matter how hard it is, you still have to do things well. Don't let others find fault with you. Mother, don't worry. Wan Yang will remember. Sangwon respectfully agreed with a smile. Wang smiled and nodded with satisfaction. That's good. Sangwon smiled and quickly reported to Wang about yesterday's arrangements and today's things to do. This included the preparations for the Fu at the end of the year, the various purchases, the contributions from the farmstead, and so on. Wang listened with a smile. She didn't ask too many questions, nor was she picky. When Sangwon asked her to make a decision, sometimes she would casually mention something she thought of. Most of the time she would just say, do as you see fit. Or, ask the steward to check last year's regulations. Other than that, she didn't say anything else. Hey, second brother, are you okay? Shi Yumei suddenly called out. She looked at Shi Fengju with a puzzled expression. For a moment, everyone's eyes were attracted by Shi Yumei's words. They all looked at Shi Fengju. Big sister, what do you mean? I'm perfectly fine. Shi Fengju was puzzled. Are you really okay? Shi Yumei didn't believe him and said, why do you look a little absent-minded? From time to time, you keep looking at your wife and smiling. Don't you know her? Sangwon's face turned red all of a sudden. She slightly lowered her eyes. She thought to herself, I really don't know what's wrong with this person. Why doesn't he know how to restrain himself? He even shows his traces in front of others. Shi Fengju wasn't looking at his wife in a trance. The more he looked, the more he felt that she was beautiful. The more he looked, the more he liked her. He recalled the ecstasy last night and this morning. He thought about pressing her down and pleasuring her. The corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. Who knew that his big sister would make a fuss about nothing? Shi Fengju was slightly embarrassed. He coughed and frowned. Big sister, what nonsense are you talking about? I was just listening to Mother and Wan Yang talking. It's not like what you said. How is it not? It's not now. It was just a moment ago. It's obviously strange. Sure, Yumei was certain. Big sister, you should stop thinking about it all day long. Shi Fengju sighed helplessly. He turned to Sangwon and said, Wanyang, let's go to Jichui Tower to take a look and see how the decorations are going. Let's see when those big and small decorations can be finished. Go go. Wang nodded when she heard this. Your third aunt is really impatient. She's in such a hurry to move in. It's fine as long as the big folds aren't bad. As for the trivial ones, let them do what they want in the future. Sangwon took the opportunity to get up. She smiled and agreed. Then, she went out with Shi Fengju. You don't know anything about the inner residence. Can't you stay and chat with mother? Why are you adding to the trouble? Let Wanyang go. Sure, Yumei couldn't bear to see Shi Fengju spending all day with Sangwon. She couldn't help but say this. I'm more familiar with third uncle and third aunt's preferences. What's wrong with following them? Wanyang has never dealt with them before. How can she know so much? Big sister, do you want to come with us? Shi Fengju smiled. Sure, Yumei didn't want to get involved in other people's business. She shook her head in disgust and rolled her eyes at him. If you want to go, go by yourself. I'm not going. Shi Fengju smiled and pulled Sangwon out. After leaving Wang's place, Sangwon glanced at the maidservants and signaled them to step back. She looked at Shi Fengju, embarrassed and angry. She gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, You have to restrain yourself in front of others. Don't make a fool of yourself. You're really... Shi Fengju couldn't help but laugh. He gently scratched her smooth and flushed cheeks and said with a smile, Really what? Who told you to be so nice? I can't get enough of you. Unfortunately, we can't delay today. Otherwise, we can just stay in the room and talk. Why do we have to come out and suffer like this? You're getting more and more ridiculous. Sangwon scolded him. If you continue to be so careless, I'll be annoyed. What if the servants have sharp eyes and say something? How am I supposed to take care of them in the future? Shi Fengju nodded and sighed dejectedly. You're right. I was careless. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Sangwon saw that he was a little depressed. She was afraid that she would make him sad, so she softened her voice and said softly, At most, we'll go back to the room, as you wish. What? Shi Fengju's eyes lit up and asked with a smile. Sangwon blushed and said softly, Nothing. It's fine if you didn't hear it. Let's go quickly. Shi Fengju smiled and said, You have to keep your word. I heard it clearly. Sangwon glared at him for not making a sound. Shi Fengju chuckled and was about to reach out his hand to pull her into his embrace, but he put it down after thinking for a while. Together, they walked towards Jichui Tower. At Jichui Tower, Mama Li and the two stewards' wives were working hard to direct the people from the courtyard to move all kinds of furniture into place. When they saw the two of them coming, they hurriedly stopped and bowed. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress is here. Mama Li went forward and said with a smile, Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, don't worry. We'll be able to arrange everything in the morning. Luya has already counted the decorations, furniture, utensils, and other things according to the list yesterday. We'll be able to move them from the storeroom in the afternoon. We don't know about that, so we'll have to rely on eldest young master and eldest young mistress to make the decision. For now, you two should go back and rest. Chapter 165. Shi Fengju smiled at Sangwon when he saw that everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. Nanny is right, let's go back first. Sangwon nodded and smiled. All right. Let's go to Han Shuang Pavilion to take a look before going back. The two left hand in hand. There were no accidents at Han Shuang Pavilion, so they returned to Ning Garden. When they entered the warm room, the maidservants served them hot tea before asking Shi Fengju to chase them out. The two snuggled up to each other as they chatted, which was naturally a different feeling compared to usual. Shi Fengju was in high spirits. No matter how he looked at his wife, he felt that she was the best. His passionate gaze and his ever-smiling mouth showed an incomparable gentleness, making Sangwon's heart feel as though it was floating in the clouds. In the afternoon, the courtyard was tidied up and checked to make sure there were no loopholes. Everything from the bed, table, and chairs to the teacups and teapots were all prepared. They ordered the servants to burn the charcoal, and the two went to the guest room to invite third old Mistress Sher and her family. Nanny Gui had been looking at the door a few times. When she saw them, she finally felt relieved and welcomed them with a smile. Young master, young mistress, you're finally here. Come in quickly, our old master and old mistress are waiting. Sorry for making third uncle and third aunt wait. Shi Fengju and Sangwon entered with a smile. Third old mistress Sher had already packed up the things. Bundles and boxes were placed in a corner, looking as though she was waiting to move. Shi Fengju and Sangwon did not say anything else. After exchanging a few pleasantries, they ordered the dozen or so maidservants that they specially called over to help carry the things to Jichui Tower and Hanshuang Pavilion. The two of them smiled and raised their hands in invitation, personally sending third old master Shi and his wife over. They also had Mama Li bring Shi Yuzhen and her sister over. Shi Yuzhen and her sister cheered and quickly ordered the servants to carry the things away. Time is tight. Thank you for your hard work. Third old master Shi smiled warmly. Third uncle, what are you saying? This is what we should do. Shi Fengju and Nanny Gui smiled. However, third old mistress Shi asked in confusion. Jichui Tower? Why isn't it Qinghui Garden? Could it be that someone else was living in Qinghui Garden now? Or is it being used for something else? It's nothing. Shi Fengju hurriedly smiled and said. After third uncle and third aunt left the mansion, Qinghui Garden was locked up. No one has stayed there for so many years. The place is big, and it's hard to clean it up in such a short period of time. Therefore, we cleaned up Jichui Tower first, and asked third uncle and third aunt to stay there temporarily. When the weather warms up next year, we will slowly clean up Qinghui Garden. When the time comes, third uncle and third aunt can move in. Oh, third old mistress Shi replied softly, but her face was expressionless. Nanny Gui could not help but interrupt. Qinghui Garden has been locked up for so many years. Have you never sent anyone to clean it up? This. Shi Fengju didn't know how to reply. Back then, his mother had been dissatisfied with his third uncle's position. She had ordered people to lock Qinghui Garden the moment they left. Not to mention cleaning and maintaining the garden, the lock hadn't been opened in all these years. He was afraid that it had long rusted. All right. Hurry up and move. I think Jichui Tower is a good choice. It's our home, so it doesn't matter where we live. There are a lot of things to do at home during the new year. How can a niece-in-law be so busy? As for Qinghui Garden, we'll talk about it after the new year. Third old master Shi glared at Nanny Gui and said. Third old mistress Shi then instructed everyone to move. She smiled at Shi Fengju and Sangwon. Then we'll have to trouble you two again after the new year. We've been living in the household for quite some time, so it's better for us to stay in our old courtyard. Shi Fengju and Sangwon naturally agreed. The two of them sighed in their hearts. That courtyard had been locked up for 7 to 8 years. Who knew how the weeds had grown? They were afraid that even the roof would have to be renovated. After sending them to Jichui Tower, third old master Shi allowed Shi Fengju and Sangwon to return first. Seeing that they had to pack their luggage, it was inconvenient for them to stay, so they bid them farewell with a smile. Old master, you're too good-natured. Third old mistress Shi sat down on a chair angrily. Even if we leave home, are we never going to return? Sister-in-law did it on purpose. She purposely left our courtyard in ruins. This courtyard has been locked up for 7 to 8 years. How can anyone still live in it? Old master, they're purposely giving you face. If you don't toughen up, how are we going to live in this household? We'll be bullied to death. Third old master Shi smiled faintly upon hearing that and said calmly, Look at you, what's the point of getting angry over this? Sister-in-law not wanting to touch our courtyard when we're not at home is also a form of respect. Furthermore, the one who contributed to the court and solved the problem was Big Brother. The court allowed him to donate officials, so it should have been Big Brother's, but father made the decision to give it to me. We were the ones who took advantage of Big Brother and sister-in-law, so it's only normal for sister-in-law to take the opportunity to vent her anger. If our two families were to switch places, can you say that you wouldn't feel indignant at all? Third old mistress Shi was furious and said, But Big Brother didn't object to it at that time. On the contrary, he supported you. Doesn't sister-in-law understand the principle of following the husband's orders after marriage? Didn't she think that being an official is different from doing business? Is that something that anyone can do? Third Old Master sure smiled. Oh, so you understand the principle of following the husband's orders after marriage? But look at you now, are you following me? I didn't even say anything, but you're feeling indignant. Isn't it normal for sister-in-law to be unhappy? Third Old Master sure wanted to add. You women are all like this. But since Wang was his sister-in-law, it was inconvenient for him to criticize her, so he kept his mouth shut. You. Third Old Mistress sure was furious. Third Old Master sure smiled again. Enough. Now that we're back at home, stop acting like you did outside. Who would bully us in our own family? Sister-in-law isn't that kind of person. Second brother and second sister-in-law aren't either. Not to mention Fengjiu and his wife. Otherwise, they wouldn't have put in so much effort to tidy up our house. They even thought of everything so thoroughly. Just take a look at this house. What can you find wrong with it? Think about it. Fengjiu and his wife are the ones in charge of the household now. If they were to deliberately make things difficult for us, or do anything that seems to follow the rules on the surface but is actually mischievous, we would really have no choice but to suffer in silence. What do you mean? Third Old Mistress sure caught on to that sentence and immediately said, Isn't Yingfang's fall not enough? Luckily, that servant was loyal and quickly helped me up. Otherwise, the one with a broken bone would be me. Third Old Master sure frowned and said, You're too sensitive. We had just returned that day, and there were a lot of things to do in the household. It's not a big deal if niece-in-law didn't give proper instructions. Besides, haven't that servant and the 3 servants been severely punished? Niece-in-law has also given you instructions. Look, you asked them to tidy up the house within 2 days. And didn't they do it for you? When we came in, they even made a fire and prepared hot tea. Even our own children might not be able to do such a good job, and be so considerate. You have to take a look at how good they are. Third Old Mistress sure scanned the room. The brocade curtains were new, and the floor was covered with a brand new Persian carpet. All the tables and chairs were made of matching mahogany. The chairs and cushions were all complete. The decorations on the walls, such as vases, furnishings, paintings, and other decorations, were all done generously and appropriately. Beside the window, there was a square flower with a white background that was intertwined with branches, and there were even 2 red plum blossoms that were about to bloom. The red charcoal fire silently emitted warm air, and the room was warm and cozy. It was indeed impeccable. Forget it. I can't win against you in an argument. Third Old Mistress sure sighed and got up to instruct Nanny Gue and the others to tidy up the bags and boxes. Everyone who was waiting started to get busy when they heard her. As the sky gradually darkened, Third Old Mistress sure ordered for the lanterns to be lit, and led everyone to continue tidying up. This time he was resigning. Although many things had been abandoned, there were still many things left. When he was packing in order to save space, he basically put all kinds of things together and did not strictly classify them. All the gaps were stuffed full. Now that he had to pack them up again, it would be troublesome. Father, Mother. A crisp voice came from outside. The curtains moved, and Sher Yuzhen came in with Sher Yulin and 2 maidservants. You guys haven't tidied up here yet. Why is it so messy? Sher Yuzhen exclaimed. How can it be so fast? Sit at the side, don't add to the mess. Third Old Mistress sure took out a list and instructed the servants to tidy up. Suddenly, she raised her head and asked Sher Yuzhen and her sister. You guys are staying at Han Shuangge, right? How is it? Is it all right? The 2 sisters looked at each other and nodded with a smile. It's decorated very well. It's not worse than our house. Third Old Master sure could not help but laugh. What nonsense are you talking about? What do you mean by our house? This is our real home. Do you understand? Oh. Sher Yulin nodded as if she understood, while Sher Yuzhen secretly stuck out her tongue. Father, Mother, let's eat first. We're all hungry. Sher Yulin called out again. Mama Li said the kitchen would send food over, so she asked us to come over and eat with Father and Mother. Now that Xiaolin mentioned it, we're really hungry. It's getting late, let's eat first. Third Old Master sure quickly said. Third Old Mistress sure rubbed her sore waist and nodded with a smile. I was distracted for a moment, and now it's here. As she spoke, she ordered the servants to stop and eat first. She also asked someone to bring hot water to wash their hands, and asked if the kitchen had sent the food over. Nanny Gui quickly went forward with a smile. The kitchen just sent a tray over. The old slave took it and placed it on the table. Third Old Mistress sure nodded, and ordered the servants to bring the tray to the side hall. She then asked if the hot water was brought over. Ying Xia held a copper basin in her hands, and a servant girl followed behind her with a kettle of water. Ying Xia quickly smiled and said, "We're still not familiar with this place, so it took us a while to find where to put the basin. This hot water is heated by the charcoal fire in the side room, so it's really inconvenient to not have a kitchen." Third Old Mistress sure nodded and could not help but glance at Third Old Master sure, as if to say, "See, I'm not the only one who said that this place is inconvenient, right?" If this was Qinghui Garden, would there be such concerns? She then said, "Remember this and remind me tomorrow. Tell young mistress to have a small kitchen partitioned out from the left side room. It'll be more convenient for us." Ying Xia hurriedly agreed, and waited on her masters to wash their hands. Chapter 166. When they arrived at the side hall, the dishes were brought out from the 2 boxes. There were 8 dishes and 1 soup neatly arranged. The color of the dishes was bright and tempting. But, Old Master, Old Mistress, Nanny Gui sighed softly. These dishes are a little cold. I'm afraid they might spoil your stomach if you eat them. Why don't Old Slave bring them to the kitchen to heat them up? Third Old Mistress sure frowned. Didn't you put hot water in the boxes to keep them warm? Nanny Gui quickly replied. They did, but it might have been a little too long since they were sent here. Old Slave tried it just now and the water wasn't hot anymore. Third Old Mistress sure went forward to take a look. The dishes were indeed not steaming. She touched the edge of the bowl, and it was still warm. Forget it. Take these dishes and share them among yourselves. It's not good to reheat them in the pot. Just get someone to cook us a bowl of noodles. Third Old Mistress sure sighed. Their family had lived in the warm Shu lands for many years. The weather was already unbearable when they came back. Looking at these cold dishes, no one had the appetite to eat them even though their stomachs were grumbling. They looked at each other and agreed with Third Old Mistress sure's opinion. Nanny Gui quickly agreed and thanked her mistress. She ordered the servants to clean up the dishes and bring them to the side room for everyone to eat. Nanny Gui smiled and said, Old Master, Old Mistress, and the 2 misses, please wait for a moment. Old Slave will go to the kitchen to inform them. Third Old Mistress sure smiled. You can just get a servant to do it. Why do you have to go personally? What do the servants know? If they don't make it clear, they might cause trouble for their mistress. It's better for Old Slave to do it. This is part of his duty as an old slave. Nanny Gui smiled. She had long wanted to find a chance to teach the servants a lesson. Now that she had the chance, how could she let it go? Third Old Mistress sure smiled as a silent agreement. She sighed in her heart. She is indeed an old woman who has been with us for many years. Nanny Gui, hurry up. I'm so hungry. Sure Yulin pouted. Nanny Gui was even happier with Sure Yulin's words. She patted her chest and promised, Fourth Missy, don't worry. Old Slave will be back soon. How about chicken noodle soup, Master and Madam? Hurry up and come down. Eat whatever you have. There's no need for too much trouble. Third Old Master sure said plainly. Third Old Mistress sure glanced at him without saying a word and instructed Nanny Gui, go quickly. Nanny Gui hurriedly agreed and wrapped herself in a cloak. Holding the lantern, she walked out of Jichui Tower's courtyard. After leaving the courtyard, Nanny Gui slapped her forehead as she thought of a terrible matter. She was old and her memory had deteriorated. Moreover, so many years had passed and the layout of the household had changed slightly. Adding on to the fact that it was night time, she actually could not tell the location of the kitchen. Nanny Gui was an experienced and senior servant. Of course, She wouldn't do something as stupid as turning back to ask her master. Wouldn't that be asking for a scolding? She thought for a moment, and decided to walk slowly according to the directions in her memory. She would ask the people she met along the way. After making up her mind, Nanny Gui tightened her cloak and walked towards the north along the path. Nanny Gui had to admit that she was indeed old. Or rather, the changes in the household were too great. After walking around for a while, the scenery on both sides seemed to be wrong. Half an hour had passed, and she still hadn't even touched the side of the kitchen. The masters were still hungry and waiting for food. Nanny Gui started to panic and became more and more flustered. When one was unlucky, even cold water would feel suffocated. Nanny Gui did not pay attention and fell down heavily. She was in so much pain that she cried out in pain and tears almost came out of her eyes. This horrible weather. It's so much worse than Sinan. Nanny Gui got up and patted the dust off her body before rubbing her sore butt. Even though she complained, she still had to continue looking for the kitchen. This is so strange. Why haven't I seen a single servant or daughter-in-law in such a big household? Nanny Gui was so anxious that her heart was burning. However, she didn't think that in such cold weather and at this time of the day, who would not be warming themselves up in the house and come out to enjoy the cold wind. She raised her head and saw a moving light behind the flowers and trees in front of her. Nanny Gui seemed to have seen a life-saving straw and hurriedly ran towards it. "Miss, is there a shorter way to the kitchen from here? The sky is dark and this old lady's eyes are not clear." Nanny Gui finally caught up and asked the two servant girls with a faint smile. One of them pointed in a direction and smiled. "You can go from here and go around the corridor in front. Turn left beside the two pomegranate trees, and you will see it after walking for a while." "Ai. Thank you, both of you. Both of you are still working at this time of night?" Nanny Gui smiled. "And we are sending something to eldest Missy. Please go ahead." The two of them replied and left together. Nanny Gui heaved a sigh of relief and followed the servant girl's directions. Indeed, the scene in her memory gradually came back. Nanny Gui was elated as she finally found the right place. "Both sisters-in-law are here. Quickly prepare a bowl of noodles for our old master, old mistress and Missy." Nanny Gui pushed the door open and saw that there were still two servants around. At this time, the fire in the kitchen had already been extinguished, and those who were supposed to go home had already gone home. Today, it was time for these two servants to stay behind to tidy up. Just as they were about to finish tidying up and go home, who knew that an uninvited guest would suddenly appear? The two servants looked at each other and were instantly unhappy. The one who was wearing a red dress asked with a fake smile, "This nanny looks quite unfamiliar. May I know where you are working?" Nanny Gui was anxious the entire way and even fell down. She was also afraid that she would be scolded if she delayed for too long and felt uncomfortable in Rizhang's heart. When she heard those words, she also became unhappy and laughed. "This sister-in-law looks clean and neat, but why are you speaking so foolishly? Don't you know that third old master and third old mistress have returned to the residence? Both of you saw that I look unfamiliar and didn't think of coming here? Haha, we are stupid people. How would we think of that? We can't be compared to you, sister-in-law." That person replied indifferently and pouted. "There is still some charcoal in the stove and the noodles, vegetables, ham and meat are all in the cupboard. You can help yourself." Nanny Gui's expression changed. "What do you mean?" "Sister-in-law, don't be angry." The other woman who was wearing a navy blue dress giggled. "We have already generously let you use the kitchen, and you are still not satisfied. This is an important place in the kitchen. If it was someone else, we wouldn't even give it to you. I say, sister-in-law, if you want to use it, then hurry up. We still have to go back. It's such a cold day, you can't possibly let us stay here for too long, right? We are already tired from the whole day." "That's right." The one in red dress snorted and said, "Didn't you already send someone to send food to third old master and third old mistress? Is it not to your taste or what? That's right. Why didn't you send the boxes and plates back to us? Great, before the cutlery was sent back, you came to ask for food again. We are also very busy and not only serve your branch of masters." The one in blue dress continued. "The other branches all send their own people to collect the food. Only your branch of the residence is sent by our people, and you still don't know how to be satisfied. That's right, look at how you are so picky. Didn't you just serve third old master outside for a few years? What are you being so smug about? It's so good outside, what's the point of coming back? Both of you shut up. Nanny Gue was fuming with anger and sneered. How can the servants talk about the matters of their masters? I think both of you are tired of living. The two of them were not to be outdone and asked Nanny Gue in unison. Which ear of yours heard us talking about our masters? You are the one who started this and now you are blaming us. Oh, we have already done what we should do. What else do you want? You are picking on our noses and eyes and you still think you are in the right. Even if it is in front of young mistress, it is the same. All right. We will go to young mistress now. I want to hear what young mistress has to say. Nanny Gue was so angry that she felt dizzy. You are so insensible. The one in red dress continued. Do you think that young mistress is idle all day and only revolves around you all? Why don't you take a look at the situation, and still want to trouble young mistress? That's right, sister-in-law. Your temper is a little too big. Just because of a few words, you want to complain about us? We are not those little maidservants who sweep the floor and do odd jobs. It is the new year and the kitchen cannot do without us. That's right, it is almost the new year. I really don't know where some people get their temper from, wanting to beat and kill for no reason. Do you want to beat up all the servants in this residence and chase them out to fulfill your wishes? AI, don't say any more. Don't say any more. What kind of people are we? How can we be compared to them? Be careful that they complain. The unlucky ones will be us. Nanny Gue's body was trembling, and she was so angry that she could not say anything. After a while, she suppressed her anger and said, I will not talk nonsense with you all. Hurry and cook the noodles so that I can bring it back for old master and old mistress. The food that you sent over has turned cold and old master and old mistress have not eaten it yet. They are still waiting with empty stomachs, so you all better hurry. If you don't want to cook it, that's fine too. Don't blame me for going to find young mistress now. I don't believe that even if young mistress doesn't want to eat, she can still eat a bowl of noodles. The two of them looked at each other and glared hatefully at Nanny Gue. They could only mumble softly as one of them started the fire, and the other cleaned the pot. If you want chicken noodle soup, you all better hurry. If third old master and third old mistress blame us, it is not a big deal to punish the two of you. All the more, young mistress cannot say anything. Nanny Gue saw that they had finally started to move, and was secretly pleased. She wanted to ruthlessly destroy their prestige, and purposely made things difficult for them. As expected, the granny dressed in red threw the firewood in her hands and said with a black face, Where is the chicken noodle soup? How can I cook chicken noodle soup for you at this time? Nanny Gue snorted. I don't care, this is your problem. The granny dressed in red sneered. That's good. Then sister-in-law, you can wait patiently. We will boil the water and kill the chicken to make the soup. You. Nanny Gue was angered again. Chapter 167. Aya, sisters-in-law. The one in navy blue was anxious to go home and said impatiently, Let's each take a step back. The earlier we finish, the earlier we can wrap up. Really? I say, sister-in-law, we really don't have any more chicken soup now. Let's use ham, dried scallops, dried shrimps, eggs, winter bamboo shoots, shiitake mushrooms and some vegetables to cook a portion. What do you think? Forget it. Let's do this then. Nanny Gue saw that she took the initiative to give in, and did not insist anymore. She said, Third old master, third old mistress, second missy and fourth missy should be hungry now. Make more. I got it. Anyway, one pot is enough. The one in navy blue washed and cut the vegetables nimbly. The man in the purplish-red robe snorted coldly. The aroma gradually came out from the steaming hot iron pot and soon, a pot of noodles was ready. Smelling the aroma, Nanny Gue could not help but feel hungry. She tried her best not to reveal any indecent thoughts. The one in navy blue nimbly scooped the noodles into a large bowl, and placed it into a container. She added boiling hot water to keep the container warm and said to Nanny Gue, It's ready. Nanny Gue stood up, brushed her clothes, took the container, and turned to leave. Just as she stepped out of the kitchen, the two people came out. As if they were afraid that she would turn back and find trouble. The two of them hurriedly locked the door and left quickly. What kind of people are they? Nanny Gui muttered. As it turned out, the two kitchen maids did have the foresight to escape. A gust of cold wind blew past, and Nanny Gui subconsciously squinted her eyes. She lost her footing and fell to the ground with a paw. She couldn't help but throw the food box away and fall heavily onto the ground. Nanny Gui was stunned. She opened her mouth but did not move, as if she was a statue. How can I be so unlucky? If I had known, I wouldn't have accepted this lousy task. Nanny Gui crawled over inside. She held onto a tiny bit of hope and opened the container. Her heart was instantly broken. The big bowl of noodles flowed everywhere. How could it be eaten? What should I do? What should I do? Nanny Gui was so anxious that she almost wanted to hang herself. She came out to look for food for her master, but now not only did she delay for so long, she didn't even bring any food back. Unfortunately, the kitchen was locked, so she couldn't even go back to cook another bowl. Nanny Gui was in a terrible fix for a moment before she suddenly thought of Sang-won, and hurriedly got up to look for Ninggarden. At this time, Sang-won and Shi Fengju were cooped up in the warm room, whispering sweet nothings to each other. The two of them were like newlyweds, and they were so harmonious. On such a warm night together, it was naturally sweeter than honey. Young master, young mistress. A discordant voice sounded through the curtain. Shi Fengju was holding his wife in his arms and whispering intimately. Hearing her words, he frowned and hugged Sang-won tightly, not allowing her to leave his arms. He said unhappily, "What's the matter?" Luya, who was outside the curtain, also felt wronged. She thought that the young master had such a bad temper today. It seemed that he didn't like any of them and looked at them with disdain. What did they do to offend him? It's Nanny Gui from third old mistress's side. She wants to see young mistress. Luya quickly said. Nanny Gui? Sang-won broke free from Shi Fengju's hands and stood up to tidy her clothes. She raised her hand to fix her hair and smiled at him. Nanny Gui must have something important to say to come at this time. Are my clothes and hair messy? It's not messy. It's pretty good. Shi Fengju smiled and helped her tidy up her hair. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Just meet her here. Don't go out. Anyway, she's not an outsider. Shi Fengju said as he led Sang-won to a chair and sat down together. He then raised his voice to ask Luya to let Nanny Gui in. Nanny is here, have a seat. What's the matter with third aunt? Sang-won asked with a smile when Nanny Gui entered. Old slave won't be sitting. After greeting Nanny Gui, she quickly smiled and said, There's something that I need young mistress's help with. Our old mistress forgot the time when she was packing, and when she remembered to eat, the food was already cold. This young mistress should have a small kitchen here, right? Can you make a bowl of noodles? Our old mistress and the two ladies haven't eaten yet. There's such a thing. Sang-won smiled and said, It's like this in winter. The food gets cold very quickly. Wait a moment, I'll ask someone to make it. As she said this, she called Luya in and asked her to go to the kitchen personally to instruct Nanny Gui. Nanny Gui was overjoyed and thanked her profusely. She smiled and said, Since that's the case, old slave won't disturb young master and young mistress. Old slave will go to the kitchen and wait. All right. Nanny, take care. Sang-won smiled and nodded. Third aunt, you have everything in the house. Why are you in such a hurry to pack? Shi Fengju smiled. Sang-won said understandingly, This is considered as having a real house of her own. Of course she would be in a hurry to decorate it personally. You men won't understand this feeling. Shi Fengju smiled and said, Is that so? But I didn't see you decorate our house. He couldn't help but look around. It seemed like it was true. Other than the big red she character and the big red silk that was removed, it was exactly the same as when they got married. Nothing was changed. Sang-won rolled her eyes at him and didn't say anything. She thought to herself, I can't wait to keep myself away to avoid leaving any traces. How would I dare to touch the things in your house? Later on, you'll deliberately find fault with me and I'll only be scolded. Wanyang. Shi Fengju saw the hidden bitterness in her small eyes and remembered their previous relationship. He couldn't help but pull her into his arms and hug her. He lowered his head and kissed her cheek repeatedly. He rubbed his face against hers and said with a smile, "You can decorate it however you like. Why don't we go to the storeroom tomorrow and pick a few decorations that you like? By the way, there are a lot of good things in the small storeroom behind my study. I'll take you there tomorrow." Sangwon saw him like this and felt sorry for herself. She laughed and took the initiative to lean into his arms and said, "Actually, our house is quite good like it is now. I like it very much really. There's no need to move it around anymore. Besides, it's almost the new year, and there are many things to do. Why move it at this time?" Shi Fengju smiled when he heard her say we. "Well, it's up to you. In the future, you'll be in charge of the affairs of the house. You can do whatever you like." The more he spoke, the more ridiculous he became. Sangwon didn't take his words to heart and smiled without saying anything. After a while, Luya came to report that the noodles had been cooked and sent to Nanny Gui. "It's getting late. Let's wash up and go to bed," Shi Fengju said with a smile. His laughter seemed to have other intentions. Sangwon blushed and didn't dare to look at him. "This servant will prepare hot water for young mistress to take a bath," Luya quickly said. Sangwon nodded and asked, "Did Nanny Gui take it herself or did she ask someone to send it to her?" Luya smiled and said, "This Nanny Gui is too much. This servant originally asked 2 servants to send her back, but she refused. This servant couldn't persuade her, and could only let it go." Sangwon couldn't help but frown. "How can you let it go? Even if you ask someone to hold a lantern for her, it's still so dark and cold. How can you let her go back alone?" Luya smiled helplessly. "That's right. But Nanny Gui refused, so this servant couldn't force her. Since it's her own request, don't think too much about it." Shi Fengju patted her shoulder lightly and instructed Luya to prepare hot water. Luya glanced at the young master who was being touchy with the young mistress. Her desire for gossip that had been suppressed for the entire day started to stir again. She hurriedly agreed and waited to ask the young mistress when she was bathing. Nanny Gui's mood was much better after being warmly treated and treated with respect in Ning Garden. It wasn't that she didn't want someone to send her back, but she knew that she would definitely be scolded if she went back. She didn't want others to see her, so she might as well go back alone. This part of the road was mostly through the corridors, so slipping and falling was basically impossible. Nanny Gui walked very quickly. As she walked, she was thinking about how to explain herself to her mistress without making her mistress angry. Unknowingly, a servant girl suddenly appeared out of nowhere. That servant girl didn't even look where she was going and bumped into Nanny Gui with a loud bang. Nanny Gui cried out, "Ayo!" She almost broke her waist and fell to the ground with a plop. She was once again sacrificed gloriously. "Where are you working? Stop right there. Don't you look where you're going." Nanny Gui held her waist and sat on the ground as she shouted at the servant. It was a pity that the night was so dark that she couldn't even tell the servant's height or age, let alone her appearance. That servant wasn't stupid. How could she obediently stand there and wait for her to catch her? Instead, she disappeared in the blink of an eye. "Ayo! God damn it, which bastard is it? I'll find out tomorrow and teach you a lesson." Nanny Gui's waist was in pain, and she struggled to stand up. "Ah, Nanny Gui." Ing Xia came over with a servant holding a lantern. When she saw her, she hurriedly ran over and said anxiously, "Why were you gone for so long?" Old mistress and Missy were waiting anxiously. Fourth Missy kept saying that she was hungry. Where's the noodles? Didn't you go to the kitchen?" "I went. Look at this." Nanny Gui was so sullen that she wanted to die. She told her everything. "Why am I so unlucky? What happened? I really didn't look at the almanac before leaving the house. How did this happen?" Ing Xia was stunned. She looked at the food on the ground and sighed. "Forget it, I'll help you back first. Explain to old master and old mistress and see what to do." Nanny Gui thought that she had waited for too long. If she didn't go back to report and let old master and old mistress wait, old mistress would definitely get angry. Not to mention old mistress, even she would get angry. Ing Xia supported Nanny Gui, while the servant carried the food box and the lantern. The three of them returned to Jichui Tower. In the shadows not far behind them, a black shadow appeared silently. It was Lan Xiang who bumped into Nanny Gui just now. Lan Xiang curled her lips into a mocking smile and walked towards Peony Park. "What's going on?" Third old mistress sure asked sternly with a dark face when she saw Nanny Gui coming back with a sprained waist and not bringing back any food. Chapter 168. Shi Yulin was extremely disappointed. She pursed her lips and was about to cry. Shi Yuzhen quickly pulled her to the side and coaxed her softly. "Old mistress, old slave is useless." Nanny Gui finally found an outlet to vent her pent-up anger. Adding fuel to the fire, she said. When old slave arrived at the kitchen, most of the people in the kitchen had already left. Only the two sisters-in-law were still tidying up. The two of them were in a hurry to go home. They claimed that they had already sent dinner over and refused to cook for old slave. Old slave thought about it and knew that it was not easy for them. Who wouldn't want to go home and rest on such a cold day? He didn't say anything else and went to Ning Garden to meet young master and young mistress. There's a small kitchen in Ning Garden. I'm sure young mistress would help with this. What happened in the end? What did young master and young mistress say? Third old mistress Shi's face was as cold as ice. Old mistress, please calm down. The kitchen is right. We were the ones who missed the meal, so we can't blame them for being unhappy. Nanny Gui is also right. Who wouldn't want to go home in such weather? Third old master Shi sighed softly and persuaded. Third old mistress Shi said coldly. Old master, I know what you mean. Everything will prosper if the family lives in harmony. But look, if you don't want to be a busybody, what do they take us for? This is new. Could it be that the master had to think for the slave and follow the slave's wishes? It's just a bowl of noodles, yet they're making all sorts of excuses. I'll ask young mistress tomorrow. Nanny Gui, please continue. Old mistress, actually the kitchen is not wrong. They really had something urgent to attend to and didn't cook for us. Their attitude was quite good. They were the ones who suggested old slave to go to Ning Garden to look for young mistress. Don't be angry, don't blame them. How would Nanny Gui dare to let third old mistress Shi confront the kitchen staff? How could she hide the truth then? As she spoke, she sighed guiltily. Actually, young mistress is also very good. After hearing old slave's words, she immediately asked the small kitchen to prepare it. However, the old slave himself was useless. On the way back, he passed by a long corridor in front of him and accidentally bumped into someone. Not only did he drop the box, but he also fell down. This servant is really useless. Third old mistress Shi held back her anger and asked. What about the person who bumped into you? Who is it? Old slave. I didn't see clearly. Nanny Gui was a little ashamed as she said. It was too dark at that time. An old slave was only focused on running and didn't pay attention to anything else. That person also suddenly bumped into us, so old slave. Old slave also didn't know who that person was. Third old mistress Shi got even angrier and scoffed. So you're saying that you did it for nothing? You didn't stop her. Speaking of this, Nanny Gui was angry, hateful, and aggrieved. She immediately retorted. Why not? However, the more old slave called out to her, the faster she ran. How could she possibly stop? Unfortunately, old slave sprained his waist, or else I would have caught up to her. Nanny Gui's eyes dimmed as she said that, and she said guiltily, Old slave is fine, but it's a pity that the noodles were ruined, causing old master, old mistress, and the two misses to starve until now. You can't be blamed for this. Third old mistress Shi said to third old master Shi. Old master, did you hear that? If you say that this is a coincidence, I won't believe a word of it. It's obvious that someone is purposely targeting us. Young mistress, I'll go look for her now. Don't jump to conclusions when the situation isn't clear yet. Third old master Shi quickly persuaded. I think this is just an accident. All right, Nanny Gui, go and rest. See if there's any more ointment for bruises and bruises. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it tomorrow. You're still defending them. Third old mistress Shi stood up and said coldly, No. I'll look for that young mistress and ask her about it. I'll ask her what she's trying to do. It's so late at night. Why couldn't she send a servant to accompany Nanny Gui back? Just based on this point alone, it's obvious that she's harboring ulterior motives. Third Old Master Sure was speechless for a moment. If that was the case, Old Mistress Sure's words were not without reason. Niece-in-law was indeed a little careless. However, it seemed a little unfair to assume that she did it on purpose. Aya niece-in-law is still young. It hasn't even been a year since she married into the family, so it's normal for her to be immature. Don't hold it against the younger generation. On the other hand, why couldn't Nanny Gui bring another person along when she went out? Third Old Master Sure persuaded. All right. You won't starve to death even if you skip a meal. Go back to your rooms and sleep. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Father. Mother. I'm hungry. I don't want to sleep. I can't sleep if I'm hungry. Sure Yulin panicked when she heard her father's words. It's all old slave's fault. It's all old slave's fault. Nanny Gui was filled with regret. If she knew that this would happen, she would not have rejected Lu Ye's request for someone to send them off. If they were to confront her tomorrow, wouldn't it be disadvantageous for her? Nanny Gui quickly blamed herself and said, Actually, young mistress's servants did say that they would send someone to send old slave. It was old slave who rejected them because he did not want to trouble them. Third Old Mistress, please don't blame young mistress. Humph. Third Old Mistress Sure said coldly, if she was a sensible person and treated us as her elders, she would have sent someone to send you off even if you rejected her. The moment you rejected her, she took a step back. It's clear that she didn't have the heart to do so. Third Old Mistress Sure frowned as she glanced at her daughter who was crying and complaining about her hunger. She could not help but feel sorry for her and said coldly, Don't stop me. I'll go look for her now. With that, she called for Ing Xia and the other maidservants and was about to leave. Stop right there. Third Old Master Sure panicked and pulled her back. Why are you still making a fuss at a time like this? You're the one making a fuss at a time like this. Third Old Mistress Sure did not hold back. Let go of me. You're not allowed to go. Sure Yuzhen and Sure Yulin were frightened when they saw their parents quarreling. Sure Yulin also forgot about her hunger and stared blankly with tears hanging on her eyelashes. She could not help but hide in her sister's embrace. Old Master, Old Mistress, Miss Gu is here. Suddenly, a maidservant came to report and interrupted their quarrel. Miss Gu? Fangzi. Third Old Mistress Sure was startled. Why is she here? Stop making a fuss. Third Old Master Sure heaved a sigh of relief and quickly said, She's a guest and she has good intentions. Quickly invite her in. What timely help. Third Old Master Sure secretly wiped his sweat. He knew that his wife had always been considerate and would not make a fuss when there were guests. Yes, Old Master. The maidservant quickly agreed, and went out to invite Gu Fangzi and Lan Xiang in. Third Uncle, Third Aunt. Gu Fangzi removed her dark green cloak and wore a beige fur coat. She went forward and greeted Third Old Master Sure and his wife with a smile. After that, she nodded and greeted Sure Yuzhen and her sister with a smile. Second cousin, fourth cousin. Fangzi, have a seat. As expected, Third Old Mistress Sure kept the anger on her face and greeted Gu Fangzi politely with a smile. Why are you here so late at night? Gu Fangzi thanked her and sat down before smiling. It's nothing much. I heard that Third Uncle and Third Aunt are moving today, so I specially came to give my regards. Kiki, you're too considerate. You still remember us. Third Old Mistress Sure could not help but feel a little emotional. Her sister-in-law and sister-in-law did not say a word, nor did they send anyone over to check on them. Instead, it was Gu Fangzi who still remembered them. Third Aunt is too polite. This is what I should do. Gu Fangzi smiled shyly and continued. I don't have any expensive gifts for Third Uncle and Third Aunt, so I brought some green bean cakes and pine nuts and osmanthus candy that I made myself. Third Uncle, Third Aunt, and my two cousins, please have a taste. As she said that, she ordered Lan Xiang to take them out and smiled embarrassedly. These are all worthless things, please don't laugh at them. I want to eat, I want to eat. Oh, there's food. When Sure Yulin heard about the green bean cakes and pine nuts and osmanthus candy, Her eyes lit up and her face was filled with excitement. She clapped her hands and ran over. And Shi Yuzhen did not even have the time to stop her. Shaolin. Third old mistress Shi's expression changed slightly. She pulled back her younger daughter who was about to reach for the cakes and reprimanded. Shaolin. Shi Yulin smelled the fragrance of the green bean cakes and pine nuts and osmanthus candy. Seeing that they were about to reach her mouth, she could not help but pout and said with a sobbing tone, "Mother is bad, not letting me eat the green bean cakes. I'm so hungry. I'm really hungry." You. Third old mistress Shi was heartbroken and angry at the same time. She was at a loss for words. "Younger sister, listen to me." Shi Yuzhen smiled awkwardly at Gu Fangzi and quickly pulled Shi Yulin's hand, wanting to bring her to the side. No. How could Shi Yulin be willing to leave? She simply burst into tears. "Fourth cousin, what's wrong?" Gu Fangzi panicked and hugged Shi Yulin, using a handkerchief to gently wipe her tears. She pinched a piece of green bean cake and handed it to her, smiling gently. "Here, cousin will give this to you. Be good, don't cry anymore." Gu Fangzi then smiled at third old mistress Shi and said, "I'm not an outsider. I'm more than happy that fourth cousin likes it, so third aunt, please don't blame her." Shi Yulin obediently nestled in front of her, took the mung bean cake, and ate it happily. After a while, she finished a piece. Her little mouth was full, and she opened her hand and said vaguely, "I want more." "Eat slowly, be careful not to choke." Gu Fangzi smiled as she patted her back and gave her another piece. She swept her gaze across the table and smiled at third old mistress Shi and Shi Yuzhen. "I made these myself. They taste really good. Third aunt and second cousin should try some too." Shi Yuzhen's stomach was also burning with hunger, but she was after all older, and was not as straightforward as Shi Yulin. Hearing her mother's words, she subconsciously looked at her mother. The desire and pleading in her eyes could not be concealed. "Since it's your cousin's kind intentions, quickly try it." Third old mistress Shi sighed. "And father, mother, you should try it too." Shi Yuzhen first took a piece of green bean cake to her parents. Third old master Shi did not eat sweets, so he smiled and shook his head. Third old mistress Shi also picked up a piece and ate it. "Oh right." Gu Fangzi blinked her eyes in confusion and smiled. "Fourth cousin said she was hungry just now. Could it be third uncle and third aunt didn't have dinner tonight?" Chapter 169. Third old mistress Shi did not want to talk about it at first, but after a night of sulking, she finally had someone to ask about it. How could she hold it in? She sighed. "That's right. We moved in late today, and it was past mealtime. The food sent over from the kitchen had already turned cold, so I asked Nanny Gui to prepare another bowl of noodles. Who knew that on her way back, she would be knocked down by a rash servant. The noodles spilled and she sprained her back. I'm not afraid you'll laugh at me, but when has Shaolin ever suffered like that? Didn't she start crying?" As she said that, she smiled and sighed. "Luckily you sent these pastries over, or else I really wouldn't know what to do with that child." "So that's how it is." Gu Fangzi came to a sudden realization and quickly smiled. "What a coincidence. But I'm not an outsider. Why would I laugh at you? Fourth cousin is still growing and cannot bear hunger, but how can an adult bear hunger? If you don't mind, I have a small kitchen at my place. I can ask Lan Xiang to prepare a bowl of noodles for you. But, it's true that I only have plain noodles. Aya, how can I trouble you again? There's no need. These pastries are enough really." Third old mistress Shi quickly declined with a smile. "Third aunt, please don't treat me as an outsider." Gu Fangzi smiled. "The stove in my small kitchen is ready-made and will be ready in no time. It's not troublesome at all. How can these pastries suppress hunger? Drinking some hot soup will be much better. Besides, third uncle doesn't eat sweets, so he'll still be hungry." "This. Kiki Fangzi, I'll have to trouble you this time. I won't stand on ceremony. There's no need to be too particular, just a bowl of noodles will do. Speaking of which, I'm really a little hungry." Third old master Shi smiled at the side. Gu Fangzi was delighted and quickly smiled. "It's my fortune that third uncle doesn't treat me as an outsider." As she said that, she quickly ordered Lan Xiang to prepare the noodles. Lan Xiang acknowledged and left in a hurry. Thank you so much. Third old mistress sure thanked Gu Fengzi gratefully. Gu Fengzi quickly replied humbly. Since they were going to eat noodles later, third old mistress sure did not allow Shi Yulin to eat so many pastries, and asked Ding Xia to keep the plate of pastries away. When Shi Yulin heard that he was going to cook noodles, she became obedient. Not long after, Lan Xiang came back with the food box. This time, nothing went wrong. A big bowl of piping hot noodles was placed on the table, and the aroma wafted out. Third old mistress Shi and her family of 4 could not help but perk up. Indeed, missing a meal would make one hungry. Ding Xia hurriedly stepped forward and put the noodles into small porcelain bowls with Lan Xiang. Although it was just plain noodles, there were fresh bamboo shoots, mushrooms, wood ears, green vegetables, sesame oil and sesame paste. There were also a few plates of crispy dried radishes, diced lettuce in sesame oil, hot and sour shredded kelp, and other side dishes to accompany the meal. As the hot soup and noodles entered his stomach, his rumbling stomach finally warmed up. After filling his stomach, his body and mind felt refreshed. Fengzi, thank you so much for tonight. Look, I'm so tired that I caused you trouble. When Gu Fengzi bid farewell, third old mistress Shi and her daughter personally sent her to the door. Third old mistress Shi held her hand and thanked her profusely. Third aunt, look at what you're saying. As the younger generation, we should be filial to our elders. Such a small matter is not worth your time. If you continue to be like this, I'll be embarrassed. Gu Fengzi smiled even more gently and modestly. Kiki, good. Then third aunt won't say any more. Third old mistress Shi laughed heartily and said gently, it's dark and the roads are slippery. Be careful on the road. Ai, Gu Fengzi smiled and said, I'll be careful. You must be tired, so hurry and rest. I'll pay you a visit another day. There's no need to pay me a visit. Come over when you're free, and we can chat to relieve our boredom. Third old mistress Shi smiled. Gu Fengzi smiled and said, sure, Fengzi can't ask for more. With that, she walked away with Lan Xiang. Seeing the master and servant walk further and further away, third old mistress Shi couldn't help but sigh in her heart. What a good girl. I wonder who will be lucky enough to have her in the future. They had just returned and were completely unaware of Gu Fengzi and Shi Fengju's past as childhood sweethearts. They were even more clueless about the fact that Gu Fengzi had already married into the Shi family. Those in Ning Garden were completely oblivious to the twists and turns of events here. Shi Fengju's heart was filled with the thought of his wife who had just fulfilled his wish. When Nanny Gui left, he urged Sangwon to take a bath. As for what to do after taking a bath, the two were naturally well aware of it. Sangwon shyly scolded him secretly, but Shi Fengju was so happy that his heart itched unbearably. He couldn't wait to hug her in his arms and be intimate with her. In the bathroom, steam rose in spirals. Flower dew, soap, bath beans, towels, bathrobes, and the like were all prepared. Sangwon took off her outer robe and placed it on the screen frame of the magnolia parrot. Seeing that Luya was still standing at the side hesitantly, she smiled and said, why aren't you going out yet? What are you still dawdling here for? The Sang family wasn't that particular. The girls of the Sang family weren't at the stage where they needed someone to wait on them while they were taking a bath. As such, Sangwon was already used to it and never allowed anyone to look at her while she was taking a bath. Oh. Luya pouted and answered in a muffled voice. What's wrong? Sangwon couldn't help but laugh. Who bullied you? If it was in the past, Sangwon would definitely feel distressed and anxious seeing Luya's expression, thinking that she had been bullied. But now that she had Mama Lee's protection, Sangwon didn't believe that anyone would dare to provoke her. Subconsciously, her tone of voice carried a hint of banter. Miss. Luya couldn't hold it in anymore. She leaned close to Sangwon and whispered mysteriously. That. Are you and the young master? Sangwon's face and neck turned red. She lowered her head and avoided Luya's gaze with a guilty conscience. Miss. Luya was anxious and stammered. Didn't you say that you were a fake couple? How could it be? She muttered. No wonder I couldn't find the bedsheet. Luya. Sangwon took a few deep breaths to stabilize her emotions. She raised her eyes and said, forget what you said in the past. Just pretend I never said anything. You and eldest young master. I have no choice but to forget. Luya muttered to herself, then smiled and said, Actually, this servant also thinks that eldest young master is treating young miss better and better. When you give birth to a young master in the future, he will definitely treat you even better. Seeing you and eldest young master like this servant is relieved. You don't know, otherwise this servant's heart would be worried to death, always thinking about what to do in the future. Now it's good, I don't have to worry about anything. Hee, that's right, there's also second young master. With second young master's support, no one will dare to provoke young miss. You. Sangwon was amused, angry, and touched. She gently tapped on Sangwon's forehead and said with a smile, You lass, you've been pacing around the house restlessly ever since you woke up this morning just to ask me this? That's right. Luya nodded without hesitation and said with a sigh of relief, This servant was almost suffocated to death. Sangwon couldn't help but laugh and shake her head. Luya also laughed. Suddenly, her expression changed and became a little sad. She said pitifully, Miss, you and eldest young master are really together, but this servant doesn't want it. Don't want what? Sangwon was confused. Don't want to be eldest young master's concubine. Luya said, Miss, you have to promise this servant. This servant is loyal to Miss, and has never had any improper thoughts about eldest young master. Sangwon had almost forgotten about this matter. When she heard Luya mention it, she couldn't help but feel moved. She quickly held her hand and said softly, We've been together for so many years, don't you know what kind of person I am? Don't worry, I won't make you do anything you don't want to do. And this servant is relieved to hear Miss's words. Luya grinned and said, The water is getting cold, Miss, quickly take a bath. This servant will take her leave now. Sangwon smiled and watched her leave. Fong Kwani went into the bathtub to take a bath. The warm water surrounded her body, and the dense water vapor blew on her face. She leaned against the bathtub and smiled softly. After taking a bath, she went to bed and rolled up the brocade quilt. She sat on the bed and was lost in thought. Not long after, Shifengju also finished bathing and came back with a fragrance. He naturally pulled up the brocade quilt and covered himself with it. He hugged her against his chest and called out with a smile, Won-young. Then he lowered his head and kissed her cheeks and neck. Sangwon couldn't help but wrap her arms around his neck. Her eyes were half closed as she accepted his intimacy. Her orchid breaths gradually became messy and heavy. Occasionally she would moan in a low voice, Won-young, I really like you. Shifengju's eyes suddenly became burning hot. He stared at her with burning eyes and deeply kissed her soft and full lips. He hugged her and rolled onto the bed, kissing her passionately. The bed was warm and the bed was hot. The two of them were entangled and intoxicated. When they woke up, the sky was already bright. The warm bed in winter was the best place for intimacy. The two of them hugged and talked for a while before getting up together. Today they were much more relaxed. Anyway, the maids didn't know the change in the situation. As long as they didn't say anything, no one would have the guts to guess. On the other hand, the two of them subconsciously felt like they were thieves yesterday. By the way, should we prepare 2 gifts for third uncle, third aunt, and 2 younger sisters today? After all, they just moved yesterday. Sangwon asked Shifengju with a smile during breakfast. Shifengju suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, Logically speaking, there's no need. After all, this is third uncle and third aunt's home. If we give them gifts, we'll seem like outsiders. However, they just came back. If we don't give them gifts, we'll seem unreasonable. It's fine if you don't mention it. Now that you mention it, I don't know what to do. Sangwon sneered. Is there anything you don't know? How rare. Why don't we ask Mother, and see what she has to say? All right. Shifengju smiled. After breakfast, the two of them went to Wang's place. Coincidentally, Shiyumei was looking for Shifengju and intercepted him on the way. Although Shifengju was unwilling, he couldn't refuse his eldest sister and could only follow her. Sangwon went to Wang's place alone to greet her. Unexpectedly, third old mistress Shi was also talking to Wang. Chapter 170. Sang-won greeted Wang before greeting third old mistress Shi with a smile before sitting down. Third old mistress Shi smiled and stood up when she saw her sitting down. She said to Wang, "I think you mother-in-law and daughter-in-law have something to talk about. Eldest sister-in-law, I'll take my leave first. I'll come and talk to you another day." Wang smiled. "It's just some small talk, what's there to talk about? But third sister-in-law, if you have something to do, you can go back first. Feel free to drop by my place some other day when you have time." "All right, eldest sister-in-law." Third old mistress Shi nodded with a smile. When she walked past Sang-won, she stopped in her tracks and looked at her. She smiled politely but distantly. "Won Yang, we've caused you too much trouble these past 2 days. You're so busy every day, and our matters aren't even your responsibility. Third uncle and third aunt really feel bad when you think about it. Here's some silver." Third old mistress Shi took out 2 banknotes from her sleeves and held them between her slender fingers. She pulled Sang-won's hand and gently placed it down for her to hold. "Take it. Take it as a thank you gift from third uncle and third aunt for your hard work these past 2 days." "Third aunt, what are you doing? You can't do this. These are things that Won Yang should do. You're treating me like an outsider." In front of Wang Shi and a group of maidservants, Sang-won's face immediately flushed red. She was embarrassed and her eyes could not help but become a little moist. Third aunt's words and actions were clearly a slap to her face in front of her mother-in-law and the servants. Sang-won could not help but secretly feel disappointed and wronged. She did not know what she did wrong for her third aunt to humiliate her in front of everyone. Why not? Third old mistress Shi was delighted to see her like this. She stuffed the silver into her hands and smiled faintly. "The servants have worked hard too. Just take it as a reward for them. We're not your proper parents-in-law. Hee, you shouldn't have done these things in the first place. We're still very grateful to you. Even blood brothers have to settle accounts clearly, don't you think so? Oh, that's right. I want to ask someone to temporarily convert one of the side rooms into a small kitchen. I wonder which steward in the estate I should ask. I'll have to trouble you to tell me." Sang-won didn't even dare to raise her head. She was so ashamed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Her face was as pale as wax paper. "Third aunt." Sang-won tried her best to make her voice carry a smile. She moved her stiff lips and said, "Third aunt, you're too polite. Won Yang can't accept this money. As for the small kitchen, Won Yang will immediately ask someone to renovate it for you. Please rest assured, third aunt." "Third aunt, Won Yang is young and naive. If she has done anything inconsiderate, please forgive her." "Niece-in-law, what are you saying?" Third old mistress Shi ignored Sang-won's shameful pleading and laughed even more brightly. Hee, actually, I don't like to take advantage of others. It's better to settle accounts clearly so that everyone will feel more at ease. Won Yang, third aunt really doesn't mean anything else. You don't have to trouble yourself to renovate the small kitchen. Really, I'll ask someone to go to Ning Garden later, and you can just tell them who to look for. It's not like I haven't been a housekeeper before. I can handle such a small matter. How can I trouble you for everything? Don't you think so? All right, I won't say any more. You guys continue chatting. I'll take my leave first." Third old mistress Shi smiled. Her gaze shifted slightly, and she nodded slightly at Wang Shi. Holding Yingxia's hand, she left. Sang-won's body trembled slightly. Her eyes welled up and hot tears dripped onto her clothes. She hurriedly blinked away the tears in her eyes and bowed towards Wang. She lowered her head and smiled. "Mother, it's all Won Yang's fault. Won Yang didn't do things well." "Enough." Wang raised her hand to stop her. She stood up with a cold face and walked towards the warm room. "Follow me. The rest of you don't have to follow me. Leave us alone." Sang-won sighed inwardly. This lesson was unavoidable. Third aunt's words in public were obviously blaming her for not managing the house well. She even brought shame to her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law was such a prideful person. It would be strange if she would let her off so easily. However, she was still her mother-in-law. She had been serving her with great care these days, and at least she knew to leave some dignity for her, and didn't reprimand her in public. Sang-won accepted her fate, and followed Wang into the warm room. How preposterous. Wang Shi snorted coldly, and slammed her hand on the Kong bed. Sangwon's body stiffened and she lowered her head. Mother, Wanyang really doesn't know why third aunt is so angry. Wanyang will go back and find out the truth and give mother and third aunt an explanation. Mother, please believe in Wanyang. Wanyang definitely didn't disrespect third aunt on purpose. Wang Shi raised her eyes and glanced at her. She waved her hand and said, I'm not angry with you. Mother still trusts you. All right, there are no outsiders here. Sit down. What? Sangwon was stunned. She couldn't help but look at Wang in surprise. Why? Do you think mother is angry at you? Blame you? Wang was angry and amused at the same time. She snorted. How can I not know my own daughter-in-law? Of course, you're not that kind of person. Your third aunt wasn't someone easy to deal with. After not seeing her for so many years, she's become more energetic. The moment she's back, she's already nitpicking. Who is she trying to intimidate? The more Wang spoke, the angrier she got. My own daughter-in-law, it's not up to her to teach her a lesson. If she's so capable, why don't she give birth to a son and get a daughter-in-law to teach her a lesson? My daughter-in-law, what right does she have to kick up a fuss? Sangwon finally regained some of her senses and understood what was going on. Mother-in-law was angry at third aunt for meddling in other people's affairs. Mother-in-law's mouth was really sharp. If third aunt were to hear about her not having a son, it would be no different from cutting someone's heart with a knife. Mother. Sangwon secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She didn't know if she should blame third old mistress Shi or be grateful to her. In any case, Wang managed to escape this punishment by luck. She went forward and gently patted Wang's shoulders and back before saying gently, Don't be angry, it's the new year. Fengju and I will be sad if you get angry. Mother, perhaps third aunt has misunderstood something. Wanyang will get someone to investigate and give mother an explanation. What's there to investigate? Wang said angrily. Isn't it just some people trying to nitpick so as to confess their identity as the head of the Shi household? No one said they weren't. Every year, the profits from the business have never been less than theirs. Which year did they not send a large sum of money for them to use? Great, the moment she came back, she became an eyesore no matter what. If she really has the ability, then don't come back, I don't care. Scolding my daughter-in-law in front of me, Does she still see me as her sister-in-law? Mother. Sangwon treated the last sentence as air and comforted her softly. Her mother-in-law's words were really lethal. If it was a daughter-in-law with a slightly stronger self-esteem or a little more sensitive, she would definitely be hurt to death. It turned out that her mother-in-law wasn't venting her anger for herself, but for her own rights being invaded by others and feeling indignant. After throwing a tantrum, Wang's mood gradually calmed down, but she still said angrily, Since they have already said so, then don't bother about the matters of the third household in the future. They can do whatever they want. Just let them do whatever they want. Good intentions don't have to be repaid well. I don't want to waste my effort and even get disdained by them. Do you hear me? Seeing that Wang was still angry, Sangwon did not dare to talk back to her. She quickly agreed and persuaded, Mother, don't be angry. Since they have already been thrown aside, it has nothing to do with us anymore. So why are you still angry? It's all Wanyang's fault for messing things up and causing Mother to be bullied. Wang waved her hand and patted her hands gently. Don't say that, it's been hard on you. AI, do you think Mother doesn't know how you do things? Besides, with Mama Lee's help and Fengju's occasional questions, it's impossible for anything to go wrong. Be good, don't take this matter to heart, just treat it as a mad dog barking. Sangwon bit her lip and mumbled a few words. Hearing that, she almost could not help but laugh and her heart felt warm. Her mother-in-law's protectiveness was actually quite good when used on her. All right, you can go back. Do what you have to do. Don't worry. I guarantee that not a single word of what happened today will be leaked out. Whoever dares to spread rumors, see if I don't teach them a lesson. Wang said angrily after venting her anger. Then Mother, have a good rest. The weather is warm in the afternoon, so go out for a walk. It's good for your body and mood. Wanyang will go back first. Sangwon said with a smile as she relaxed. Go. Wang nodded with satisfaction and instructed her. Call Nanny Jiang in. Sangwon obeyed, and went out to call Nanny Jiang before leaving the main courtyard. In Ning Garden, Luya helped her remove the large sweater and muttered angrily, "I don't know what kind of medicine third old mistress ate. How could she embarrass young mistress in front of so many people? Newbie really feels sorry for young mistress. Since it's so strenuous and unrewarding, young mistress should just not interfere with the matters of the third household in the future. She can do whatever she wants, as long as it goes according to her wishes." Luya. Sangwon did not wait for her to finish and quickly stopped her before condemning. "How can you speak so carelessly? How can you say such things? If this gets out, even I won't be able to protect you." "This is Ning Garden." Newbie only said a few words. Who can say such things outside? Even if they do, Newbie isn't afraid. When Luya's temper flared up, she did not care about anything else. Newbie just feels injustice for young mistress. Even if young mistress did something wrong and third old mistress is dissatisfied, she can't ridicule you like this in front of so many people. What right does she have to bully you like this? To be honest, even first old mistress has never embarrassed you like this. She's not your proper mother-in-law. As they spoke, the two entered the warm room. "Luya." Sangwon's face darkened and she shouted in a low voice, "The more I don't reason, the more you get angry? How many times have I told you that trouble comes from careless talk? Have you forgotten? How did Mama Lee teach you?" "Young mistress." Luya bit her lip in grievance and looked pitifully at Sangwon, feeling very hurt. Chapter 171. Sangwon's heart also softened. She held her hand and sighed softly. "Well, I know you feel injustice for me, but there are some words that even I can't say, not to mention you. Do you understand? Besides, what's the point of complaining like this except to make your mouth feel good? There must be a cause for everything. This matter." Luya's eyes flashed. Just as she was about to speak, Shi Fengju lifted the curtain and came in. "Wanyang." Luya sensibly curtsied and left silently. "Wanyang, are you okay?" Shi Fengju stepped forward and held Sangwon's hand, asking with concern. Sangwon smiled and shook her head. She pulled him to sit down with her and poured tea for him. She asked with a smile, "Why are you back so soon? Why did eldest sister look for you?" "Just a few words. It's not a big deal." Shi Fengju took the tea and put it aside. He said, "I just went to mother's place to look for you. I heard everything from her. Wanyang, I'm sorry to have wronged you." Sangwon felt warmth in her heart. She gently shook her head and said, "Maybe I really neglected something and did something that third aunt hates. I'm the younger generation, so it's okay to ask her to say a few words. Besides, mother didn't blame me, so I'm very happy." Sangwon's misty eyes lit up slightly as she spoke and smiled. "That's true." Shi Fengju smiled and moved to sit next to Sangwon. He hugged her and said with a smile, "It can be seen that mother is a sensible person. She still cares about you. I'm relieved that you don't take it to heart and make yourself angry." Shi Fengju certainly knew the real reason why his mother didn't scold Sangwon. However, as her son, he wasn't stupid enough to analyze the truth for Sangwon. Some things would be over with a little confusion, and everyone would be happy. What was there to be clear about? Many times, it was a lot of pain for oneself. But I'm afraid that third aunt still has a grudge in her heart. Let's ask someone to inquire about this matter. What was going on? I can avoid making the same mistake in the future, Sangwon added. Shi Fengju smiled and said, "I'm not waiting for you to tell me. I've already told the wet nurse when I came back. I'm sure she'll find out the whole story soon." Sangwon immediately felt relieved and smiled gratefully at him. With Mama personally handling the matter, there's naturally nothing to say. Today, third aunt said that she wants to convert one of the rooms into a small kitchen. We'll wait for Nanny to investigate before we make any further plans. What do you think? Shi Fengju nodded. There's no hurry. Over at Peony Park, Gu Fengzi asked Lan Xiang to investigate carefully. She was waiting for a storm to engulf Sangwon. Third old mistress sure did not look like the type of person to be bullied. She was so angry last night that she complained to third old mistress sure about what she should and should not say. She did not believe that third old mistress sure would not do anything today. However, half a day had passed and Lan Xiang did not manage to find out anything. Did you really find out? Gu Fengzi asked suspiciously. Didn't you say that third aunt went to visit Aunt Wang this morning? Did she really just visit her? This servant doesn't know either. Lan Xiang shook her head awkwardly. This servant did not dare to ask too much from the people in the main courtyard. However, this servant feels that something must have happened. Then why aren't you saying it? Gu Fengzi's spirits were lifted. Lan Xiang originally didn't want to say it, but her master seemed to be suspicious of her. She had no choice but to show her loyalty. She said something that seemed to be right, but was actually wrong. It seemed like there was something wrong, but she couldn't confirm it. That's right, when this servant was asking around, those people were all hesitant and secretive. It was obvious that they wanted to evade the responsibility and refused to say anything. This servant feels that there is definitely something wrong here, but this servant also doesn't dare to confirm. There's no need to say any more. Gu Fengzi's face turned pale, and her excited heart sank. Lan Xiang did not understand, but she already understood. Something must have happened, and someone gave the order to the maids in the main courtyard to keep their mouths shut. Kiki in the main courtyard. Who else could make the maids keep their mouths shut and not dare to gossip, other than Aunt Wang? Aunt Wang, she was actually protecting that slut. Gu Fengzi's heart surged, and she was so jealous that she was about to go crazy. Sangwan, that be *tch. She snatched away her big cousin, and now she's snatching away her aunt. She turned her head and looked hatefully towards the room where Gu Jin's tablet was enshrined. It was all him, all him. She had suffered enough humiliation when he was alive, and now he was obstructing her happiness after he died. How could there be such a father in this world? Young miss, are you all right? Lan Xiang saw Gu Fengzi's ferocious gaze and twisted face, and could not help but worry. Lan Xiang. Gu Fengzi's eyes turned cold and she turned her head to stare at her coldly. Don't betray me, don't ever betray me in this lifetime. Otherwise, I will not let you off. You know my temper very well. Lan Xiang's face turned pale. She did not even dream that her words of concern would get such a reaction from her young Mississippi. Her knees went soft and she knelt down. Young miss, this servant is loyal to young miss and has never thought of betraying you. This servant's life and death is young miss's, and will never do anything to betray young miss. Otherwise, I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. That better be the case. Gu Fengzi sneered. Otherwise you will definitely die a horrible death and it will be worse than being struck by lightning. Lan Xiang's body stiffened, and she lowered her head to the ground, not daring to make a sound. At night, Mama Li came back with news. The old slave is not familiar with the people in the third branch and did not get much information. However, I heard that Nanny Gui fell and sprained her waist on the way back from our place last night, and spilled her noodles. After that, Miss Gu went to Jichui Tower. She first sent some snacks and then asked Lan Xiang to cook some noodles for her. When she left, it was third old mistress who personally sent her to the door. Mama Li pursed her lips in disdain. She could not help but disapprove of third old mistress sure. In her opinion, anyone who shared the same rotten taste as Gu Fengzi was definitely not a good person. Of course, she was not a little lass like Luya and would never plot against her mistress. Even if she wanted to, she would only do so in her heart. Sangwon immediately paid attention. Nanny is saying that Miss Gu went to Jichui Tower last night? Yes. Mama Li pursed her lips and said, I don't know what she's planning. Anyway, Miss Gu and young mistress probably don't get along well. Anything that has anything to do with her is definitely not a good thing. What the old slave is puzzled about is what Miss Gu said to third old mistress. How? How did she manage to convince third old mistress? Not only was Mama Li puzzled, even Sangwon herself was puzzled. Even though she did not have much contact with third old mistress sure, she was definitely not someone who was easily fooled and easily used as a target. She must have thought things through before doing something. But even at this stage, she was still so dissatisfied with Sangwon. One could only imagine how much Sangwon had offended her. The problem was, she did not know anything about it. Young mistress, since third old mistress wants a small kitchen, quickly arrange for someone to prepare it for her. It will save us a lot of trouble and save young mistress from a thankless task. Mama Lee sighed softly. Sangwon nodded. All right. Who would have thought that something like that would happen last night? Go and make the arrangements. I'll bring some people over tomorrow morning. Mama Lee agreed and the night passed peacefully. Third old mistress sure originally thought that Sangwon would come over to apologize to her, but who knew that after a day had passed, no one came. She could not help but feel even more furious as she blamed Sangwon for her impudence. Little did she know that she had even offended her sister-in-law. Her sister-in-law had ordered Sangwon to ignore the matter, so Sangwon should naturally be left alone. No one would go against their mother-in-law for their aunt's sake. Third old mistress sure was annoyed and said to third old master sure, we haven't been at home for so many years, and we don't know how the annual income is. Old master, shouldn't we inform Fengju and ask him for the account book? What do you want to do? Third old master sure's tone was low and his face turned cold. Third old mistress sure snorted and said straightforwardly, what else can we do? Of course, we're going to check the accounts. We're a few thousand miles away. Who knows if they did anything behind our backs? Let's check it out so that we'll feel more at ease. We'll also remind them not to treat us lightly. Third old master sure stared at his wife quietly and did not speak for a long time. Third old mistress sure was a little annoyed by his inexplicable and seemingly calm gaze. She could not help but glare at him and said, what? Why are you looking at me like that? Did I say something wrong? We have the right to look at the public's account book. If they don't allow it, then they must be guilty. Wait, let me show you something. Third old master sure got up and went into the small study room. Not long after, he took out 2 folded pieces of yellow paper and handed them to third old mistress sure. Third old mistress sure received them suspiciously. She opened them and saw that they were the deeds for 2 shops. One was a silk shop, and the other was a cosmetics shop. Looking at the addresses, they were located in a good area in the city and were not small. She could not help but be overjoyed and smiled at third old master sure. When did old master set up these businesses? That's great. I was still thinking that since we have to stay here for so long, how can we just rely on the allowance given by the public? With these 2 sources of income, it's much easier. Otherwise, if they did not even have enough money to tip the servants, wouldn't they be mocked for being shabby? AI. Third old master sure let out a long sigh helplessly. He looked at her and said, do you know 2 days ago when the 3 of us were drinking and chatting at second brother's place, Fengju had already said that we can check the account books at any time. If there's anything we don't understand, we can ask the accountant or ask him directly. As for these 2 shops, they were given to me by Fengju in private. He said that the first and second household have their own private properties outside, and we don't have any because we aren't at home. So he gave these 2 shops to us, saying that it would be easier for us to spend money in the future. Old mistress, in all these years we've been in Shu County, when did the family not send us more than 10,000 silvers? But what have we done for the family? It's fine if you say it in front of me, but you must not say it outside. If it were to reach Fengju's ears, it would hurt his heart. Fengju, this child, is as honest as Big Brother. As his elders, we must know how to be considerate and dote on him. Chapter 172. Third old mistress sure was dumbfounded. In an instant, she felt so ashamed that her face turned red. Is this true? Third old mistress sure asked with difficulty. Would I lie to you? Third old master sure nodded slowly and sighed. Don't let your imagination run wild in the future. Fengju is such a good child. Not to mention that Wanyang has done a good job. Even if there were some mistakes, we shouldn't make a fuss about it for Fengju's sake. I heard that you humiliated Wanyang in front of sister-in-law today. I'm afraid that even sister-in-law would be unhappy with what you've done. Sister-in-law has always been protective of her own people. It's not like you don't know that. Third old mistress sure suddenly felt frustrated and said in a fit of pique, I'm just angry. First, it was Ying Fong who fractured her bones, then Nanny Gui who sprained her waist. Who wouldn't be angry with such a series of troublesome matters? You're at it again. Third old master sure frowned and said, these 2 matters are clearly unrelated, So why do you have to link them together? Ing Feng's matter was due to the servant's negligence, and Wan Yang has already given an explanation. As for Nanny Gui's matter, it was caused by us missing our mealtime. What does it have to do with Wan Yang? I'll say it again, think about it carefully. Which part of Wan Yang did not think of us well enough? Is there anyone who can do a better job? Third old mistress sure was at a loss for words. After a while, she sighed and said, I'm not an unreasonable person, but we've just returned. If we don't establish our authority, won't we have to be at the mercy of others in the future? Old master, you don't want that to happen, do you? Wan Yang may have done well, but that doesn't mean she's that good. Fengzi isn't any worse than her. It's good that you know not to be unreasonable. Third old master Shi's face darkened and he said, We are legitimate masters. Is there a need to establish our authority? If any servant dares to be unreasonable, just send them away. I don't believe that in the face of the rules, Fengju and Wan Yang will protect their servants and ignore their elders. If he really dares to do so, I will negotiate with him. And Fengzi, it's better if you don't interact too much with her in the future. She's now Fengju's concubine. It's not good for you to interact too much with her. What? Third old mistress Shi's attention was immediately attracted by her husband's last sentence. She widened her eyes in surprise and asked, What did you say? Fengzi is Fengju's concubine? You don't know. This time, it was third old master Shi's turn to be surprised. How could this be? Third old mistress Shi sighed. She believed that her husband would never joke about something like this. She sighed. Sister-in-law sure is heartless to let her own niece be her son's concubine. This is really... Don't spout nonsense. Third old master Shi frowned again. This has nothing to do with sister-in-law. You should have some impression of Fengzi being raised in our household since she was young, right? I'm not too sure about this either. You can ask around when you're free. Third old master Shi was a man of status. He would naturally not gossip about his nephew's past, but it tickled his wife's heart. Third old mistress Shi persistently pressed on, but third old master Shi refused to talk about it. In the end, under her relentless questioning, he told her everything that he had unintentionally heard about. The household has never been so lively in the past half a year. Third old mistress Shi sighed in realization. She suddenly felt a little regretful. If only I hadn't missed out on it. Third old mistress Shi could not help but say, I see that Fengju is very considerate and protective of Wan Yang. Fengzi is really pitiful. That girl has a hard life. As she said that, she glanced at third old master Shi and said faintly, It can be seen that a man's heart is unreliable. He changed just like that. Third old master Shi snorted. Fengju and Wan Yang's engagement has been going on for a long time. Who in the household doesn't know about it? Fengju already knew that he had such a wife, so it's only right for him to treat her well. What you said is unfair to Wan Yang. To be honest, since Gu Fengzi knew about Fengju's engagement, she should have avoided contact with him to avoid arousing suspicion. But now that so many incidents have happened, I feel that the one who has been wronged is Wan Yang. Third old mistress Shi was unconvinced. What you said is also unfair. Who knows? Maybe Fengju was the one who provoked her. Fengju doesn't seem like such a person, third old master Shi said. Besides, even if Fengju provoked her, she would have avoided him if she was a well-mannered person. I don't think it's appropriate for such a woman to be in a hurry to marry into the family during her mourning period. Don't get too close to her in the future, and don't get too close to your two daughters. Third old mistress Shi did not speak. The next day, Mama Li brought some servants to Ji Chui Tower to see third old mistress Shi. She asked for her opinion on where to change the small kitchen, so that they could start working on it. She then said, Young mistress and young master have been busy checking if the New Year's gifts are appropriate. They will be sent out in another 2 days. Young mistress said that she would come and pay her respects to third old mistress after these 2 days. Young mistress also asked this servant to ask third old mistress if there are any families here that third old mistress and third old master would like to send New Year's gifts. In the past, the household has only sent gifts to third old mistress's family, and not to the other relatives. Since third old mistress is back this year, shouldn't we prepare something? If there are any gifts that need to be sent, young mistress can draw up a list of names and requests so that young mistress can have someone prepare them. Luckily, Wan Nyang is so attentive that I didn't even think about it. Third old mistress sure felt ashamed and could not help but hold her forehead. She quickly smiled and said, I'll draw up a list for you now. I'll have to trouble Wan Nyang with this. There's no need to rush the small kitchen. I think it won't be too late to change it after the new year. Mama Lee, you should busy yourself with other things. The old slave has already found someone. It's just a matter of 1 or 2 days. It's not troublesome at all. Mama Lee quickly smiled and said, The weather is so cold. Wouldn't it be more convenient to boil some hot water or tea? Third old mistress sure smiled and sighed. That's true. All right then, I'll bring you there now. Wan Nyang is so considerate. I'll thank her again later. Third old mistress sure stood up and led Mama Lee to the side room. Mama Lee followed behind and smiled. Third old mistress, you're too polite. Our young mistress isn't such a particular person. Third old mistress sure smiled. Thinking about her husband's words, she felt even more apologetic. At Ning Garden 1, Sangwon and Shifengju were looking through the list of New Year's gifts prepared for their relatives and friends. The 2 housekeepers in charge of this matter stood in front of them to answer questions and explain. There were many additions, deletions, and amendments, which the 2 housekeepers noted down one by one. After half a day of revising and revising, the matter was finally completed. At that moment, Chang Huan requested to see Shifengju, saying that the things that young master wanted were here. Shifengju quickly ordered Lu Ye to bring the lass back to receive the things. He turned around and smiled at Sangwon. I specially asked Chang Huan to prepare these a few days ago. These are gifts for you. I guarantee you'll like them. Sangwon smiled and said, Didn't you just send some clothes and accessories a few days ago? Where did you get these new things from? Shifengju smiled and said, You'll know when you see them. I guarantee you'll like them. At that moment, Lu Ye and the 2 maidservants each brought in a wooden box that was about 2 feet long and 1 foot tall. There was also a palm-sized brocade box. Shifengju gestured for them to be placed on the Kong bed, before ordering them to leave. Shifengju hugged his wife from behind and said with a smile, Guess what it is? Sangwon sneered and tilted her head to look at Shifengju with a smile. So what if I get it right? So what if I don't? Shifengju's hand rubbed her waist gently, causing her to snort and hit his hand away. He rested his chin on her shoulder and rubbed against her temples and cheeks. He laughed softly and said, It's all up to you whether you get it right or not. If you get it right, you'll be rewarded at night. If you don't, you'll be punished. Sangwon's face turned red. She gently spat at him and said in a low voice, No matter what, it's all up to you. Shifengju laughed and said intimately, How is it up to me? But I see that you like it very much. Sangwon was embarrassed and pushed him away. Shifengju was not willing to let her go and laughed loudly. Seeing her shy appearance, his heart swayed. He suddenly held her face and kissed her lips deeply. They kissed until both of them were about to suffocate. Only then did he let her go. It's not dark yet. Don't mess around. Sangwon was panting. Her face was flushed red and her watery eyes were especially bright and misty. Shifengju knew that she was shy and afraid that she would get angry, so he stopped teasing her. His fingers gently rubbed her lips and he said in a hoarse voice, Okay, it's not dark yet. I won't mess around. His little wife's beautiful appearance made him want to carry her into the room and give her some love. The more he talked, the less serious he was. Sangwon's heart swayed. The red flush on her face did not fade, but became even hotter. In her heart, Rijong's image of a gentleman was completely gone. What exactly is it? Why are you being so mysterious? Sangwon felt that it was better to bring the topic back on track. Guess. Shifengju was still laughing and teasing her. He looked at her with interest, as if he was calculating the reward and punishment, if she guessed correctly or not. Sangwon met his eyes and her face could not help but turn red. She looked away in a panic and made random guesses. She guessed that it was jewelry, makeup, and so on. She guessed that it was a jade hairpin, a flower hairpin, earrings, bracelets, rouge, powder, flower dew, perfume, and so on. But no matter how she guessed, Shifengju just smiled and shook his head. I won't guess, I won't guess. Sangwon could not help but feel discouraged. She pouted and complained. There's no margin at all. My throat is dry and I still can't guess. I won't guess anymore. Shi Fengju laughed and took the teacup from the side. It was still warm, so he opened the lid and fed it to her. Sangwon took the opportunity to open her mouth and drink 2 mouthfuls. She heard him chuckle and say, "So you lost? You have to listen to me tonight." Sangwon's face turned red. She avoided answering and asked with a smile, "What is it?" She thought, "I can't change your mind. What else can I do if I don't listen to you in bed? It's just that you don't have to play so many embarrassing tricks." Thinking about it, she felt embarrassed. This person was really a wolf in private. He wanted to skin her, break her bones and swallow her. Chapter 173. Look, Shi Fengju stopped teasing her and smiled as he took one of the boxes and opened it in front of her. Inside was a sea of golden light. It was filled with all kinds of coins that were exquisitely made out of gold foil and gold thread. There were coins that were about the size of coins. There was a marquis on horseback, a wishful fortune, a blossoming prosperity, a 5 blessings holding longevity, a crane and deer in spring, a hall of gold and jade, a rabbit biting auspicious grass, a jade orchid, a winter jasmine, a toad palace folding osmanthus, a spring swallow cutting willow, a bamboo announcing peace, a wishful luck, a magic cloud, a flying swallow, a divine turtle, a swan, a peony, a hibiscus, a plum blossom, a glossy ganoderma, and many others. Each of them was exquisitely made and looked very lifelike. They were placed in a pouch and were perfect for the children of visiting relatives and friends during the new year. Sangwon was very happy to see them. She flipped through a few of them, and the more she looked at them, the more she liked them. She smiled and said, "You are so thoughtful. I have been thinking about this for the past 2 days, and wanted to discuss it with Mama." "Discuss it with Nanny?" Shi Fengju said with a bit of jealousy. "You didn't think of discussing it with me?" Sangwon smiled embarrassedly and hurriedly shook his hand. She smiled and said, "You are a person who does big things. How could I trouble you with such a small matter? If Mama finds out later, she will blame me for not caring about you." Shi Fengju became excited and said, "Oh, so you were afraid that Nanny would blame you? Then you didn't think of caring about me?" Sangwon was speechless and said with some embarrassment, I know what I think. I don't want to say it." Shi Fengju laughed and let her off. He opened the other 2 boxes as well. One of the boxes was the same as the first one, but it was made of silver instead of gold. It could be used to reward the head maidservants, nannies and daughters-in-law in the new year. The other box was filled with brand new copper coins. It was also prepared to be used as a reward during the new year. "I suddenly thought of this a few days ago, so I did it for you. Tell Luya and the others to put it away. Is this enough for you to use during the new year?" Shi Fengju asked with a smile. "I haven't experienced it, so I can't say for sure. I'll ask Nanny later. I think it's about the same." Sangwon smiled. He sighed with emotion. Shi Fengju smiled and said, "This is the first time you've spent the new year with us. You'll have experience next year. Go back and ask Mama. If it's not enough, let me know and I'll ask the jewelry shop to make some more." Sangwon agreed with a smile. "Oh right." Shi Fengju took the small brocade box and opened it. Inside was a stack of banknotes neatly stacked. He smiled and said, "Here are 3,000 taels of silver. 2 of them are 500 taels, 15 are 100 taels, and the rest are 50 taels and 10 taels. You can save them for the new year. If you want to scatter the silver, you can ask someone to exchange it in the accounts room." Sangwon was shocked. She hurriedly pushed it away with a smile and said, "I have a limited amount to spend during the new year. There's enough in the public treasury, so there's no need for so much." He told her that such a large sum of money was hers. Sangwon couldn't accept it for a while. She would feel uneasy with so much money in her hands. "If you can't use it all, just leave it there. I'm your husband, so you'll have to take care of my private property sooner or later. When I go away, if you don't take care of it for me, who will?" Shi Fengju didn't want to give it to her and insisted on giving it to her. He wanted to be good to her, very good to her, and share everything he had with her. Sangwon saw that he was a little unhappy, so she didn't refuse and accepted it with a smile. Fengju liked it again. He couldn't help but hug his lovely wife and talk to her affectionately. 2 days later, Sangwon brought the clothes made by the embroidery workshop and the list of gifts for Third Shirshir's relatives to visit Jichui Tower. Third old mistress Shir welcomed her with a smile and called her Wan Yang, with indescribable affection, as if nothing had happened before. Sangwon was a little nervous when she arrived. Although she was secretly puzzled, she was greatly relieved. She smiled affectionately and spoke to third old mistress, passing the clothes and the list of gifts to her. I've troubled you, Wan Yang. Third old mistress sure wasn't an arrogant and overbearing person. Otherwise, third old master sure wouldn't be an official anymore. At this moment, she held Wan Yang's hand and smiled sincerely. You've been in charge of everything since I came back. It must have been hard on you to take care of everything. Third aunt, you're being too courteous. Wan Yang only said a few words. Everything was done by the servants, so Wan Yang didn't trouble me at all. As long as third aunt doesn't blame me for not taking care of you well, I'm satisfied. How can I blame you? I can't thank you enough. Third old mistress sure hurriedly expressed her sincerity with a smile, and called for Nanny Gui to bring a brocade box over. She then took out a garnet ruby bracelet and placed it on Sangwon's wrist. She smiled and said, I've just tidied up my messy things this time, and only then did I remember that I haven't given Sangwon a greeting gift. This ruby bracelet is the most auspicious and efficacious. It'll definitely bless you to have many children, and be blessed with many blessings. Sangwon's face turned red and she lowered her eyes to thank her with a smile. What's there to be embarrassed about? Third old mistress sure couldn't help but laugh. Fengju dotes on you so much, I'm sure he's looking forward to being a father. After you have a child, everything will be perfect. Isn't that so? Nanny Gui also joined in. Young mistress, you look like a blessed one. You'll definitely be able to have a boy in one go. That's true. Third old mistress sure smiled as well. With the master and servant chatting happily, Sangwon didn't know how to express her opinion. She forced a smile and sat for a while before quickly finding an excuse to leave. I know you have a lot of things to do, so I won't keep you any longer. Come to third aunt's place tomorrow when you're free. Third old mistress sure personally sent her to the door. She held her hand and took 2 steps forward to avoid the servants who were following them. She smiled gently and said, Wan Yang, third aunt was too impulsive a few days ago and went overboard with my words. Don't take it to heart. Third aunt knows you're a good child and not someone who doesn't know what she thinks. Sangwon smiled and said, Third aunt, don't say that. You're an elder and Wan Yang is a junior. How can I be worthy of third aunt's words? You really don't deserve Wan Yang's praise. All right then, third aunt won't say any more. Third old mistress sure smiled and said, Come visit third aunt more often in the future when you're free. Third aunt doesn't mind Wan Yang's stupidity. Wan Yang will do as you say. Sangwon nodded with a smile and left. Although she didn't know why third old mistress Shir's attitude changed, it was a good thing for Sangwon. As if a huge rock had been lifted from her heart, Sangwon heaved a huge sigh of relief. Who would have thought that Shir Yumei's side would cause trouble again? The next morning, Sangwon and Shir Fengju went over to Wang's place to greet her. Shir Yumei said with dissatisfaction, Wan Yang, I heard that the list of gifts for our relatives and friends has been prepared. Yes. Sangwon nodded hesitantly. She subconsciously glanced at Shir Fengju. Fengju and I went through it 2 days ago. From today onwards, we've started sending gifts to our relatives and friends. Is that so? Shir Yumei raised an eyebrow. Then what about our family? Why didn't we prepare anything for our relatives and friends? Your family? Sangwon was startled for a moment, before remembering that she was talking about the Ren family. Sangwon was speechless and looked at Shir Fengju with a troubled expression. Shir Fengju also frowned. Just as he was about to speak, Wang exclaimed in realization and said, Your family? Are you talking about the Ren family? Sangwon bit her lip and almost laughed out loud. Her heart was greatly relieved. Originally, she thought that her mother-in-law had asked Shir Yumei to ask this question. But it turned out that her mother-in-law had only just found out about it. Moreover, from her mother-in-law's tone, she didn't approve of it. This made things much easier. Mother. Sure, Yume called out to Wang with a hurt expression and said unhappily, "It's going to be the new year soon. No matter what, we're still part of the Ren family. We should at least give some gifts to the elders in the family. Otherwise, people will talk about it." Shi Fengju snorted silently. Afraid of people talking about it? That's strange. He didn't need to think to know that this rotten idea must have been instigated by Ren Jixian. If it weren't for him, Big Sister wouldn't have thought of this. Shi Fengju sneered secretly. Good for him. He instigated Big Sister to take the initiative while he hid in the back and didn't say anything. Was he still a man? This. Wang also frowned. Her daughter's words made sense. After all, they were still part of the Ren family. If they didn't respect the elders in the family, it would be difficult for the family to not help them in the future. After all, their surname was Ren. It was inconvenient for the Shi family to stand up for them. Wan Yang. Shi Yume saw that her mother was moved and immediately felt proud. She ordered Sangwan, "Hurry up and prepare for me today. I want." Big Sister. Shi Fengju suddenly interrupted her and asked with a smile, "Brother-in-law is the head of the family. Shouldn't brother-in-law make the decision for such an important matter? Why is Big Sister making the decision instead? I think we should ask brother-in-law to come over first." Shi Yume suddenly felt embarrassed and quickly said with a smile, He's been revising his homework these days. Let's not disturb him." "Oh right." Shi Yume took out 2 pieces of paper and said with a smile, "This is his list. Just prepare according to it." Xiao-chun took the paper and handed it to Shi Fengju. Shi Fengju was even angrier when he saw it, but there was no emotion on his face. He said with a smile, "That's not right. It's better for brother-in-law to explain it to us personally. If he doesn't explain it clearly, it's hard for us to prepare. Who knows how big and what kind of meat he wants? A pair of chickens, a rooster or a hen? How big are the chickens? We have to ask clearly. Brother-in-law is from a scholarly family. The rules are different from ours. If the preparations are not to his liking, won't all our efforts be in vain?" Shi Fengju sneered in his heart. He asked people to prepare New Year's gifts for him, but he didn't even show his face and didn't even say a word. At that time, his family members were slaves who followed his orders. Did he think he was a master? Sangwon pinched her handkerchief and sat calmly with her eyes lowered. She pretended that she didn't hear anything. She felt angry and amused at the same time. This brother-in-law of hers was really a top-notch talent. No wonder Fengju was angry. Shi Yume was speechless for a moment. She could hear her younger brother's unhappiness, so she looked at Wang for help. "Mother." "I think Fengju is right," Wang said. "Just ask your son-in-law to come over. There's no point in working hard now. Wouldn't it be easier to make things clear?" Chapter 174. You can't even consider such a small matter. What is the meaning of your Shi family? Do you still think of me as your son-in-law? Are you looking down on me just because you have some stinky money? Humph, just wait until I get a scholarly rank in the future. If you have the ability, don't come looking for me. With her husband's angry words echoing in her ears, how would Shi Yume dare to invite him over? There's no need for that. Shi Yume declined. Just prepare the same things for the other families as well. I can still make the decision on such a small matter. If I say so, then so be it. If that's the case, then forget it. Wang looked at her daughter and son before her gaze finally fell on Sangwan. "Wan Yang, take the list and go prepare it quickly. Send it to Mengxian later. The elders in your eldest sister's family are still elders. You have to respect them." "Yes, mother." Sangwon could only stand up and nod her head in agreement. "Brother-in-law sure is busy." Shi Fengju smiled faintly. "Mother, I still feel that this isn't very good. After all, he is still an elder in brother-in-law's family. Why can't he come forward personally to inform him, so that the matter can be handled more satisfactorily? Since brother-in-law is so respectful towards his elders, Isn't it too disrespectful for him to not even show his face, or say a word about such an important matter? Second brother, are you deliberately arguing with me? Shi Yumei's eyes turned red as she stared at him and asked. Big sister, Shi Fengju said sternly. Do you think I'm arguing with you? I don't understand. Why can't brother-in-law come forward personally? Does he treat us as relatives or servants? Do we have to obediently follow his orders? He doesn't even allow us to ask him a single question. Second brother, how can you think like that? When did I ever mean that? Shi Yumei became anxious and felt wronged. Fengju. Wang saw her daughter's eyes and face turning red, and could not help but cast a condemning glance at Shi Fengju. Big sister. Shi Fengju secretly regretted that he had said those words to his sister. However, he felt very sullen in his heart. Unfortunately, he couldn't vent this sullenness on his sister, which made him even more annoyed. Suppressing her anger, she said guiltily, I'm sorry, big sister. I didn't mean to say that to you. It's just that I feel a little uncomfortable. How could brother-in-law do this? He didn't even show his face or say a word during such a big event. Does he still see us as relatives? Although Shi Yumei was unwilling to admit it, she knew that Shi Fengju's words made sense. She also knew that her husband wanted to save face and would never beg the Shi family to prepare a gift for him. He would only vent his anger on her. In short, whether it was left or right, he was stuck in the middle and in a dilemma. She couldn't explain this to her mother and brother, but she couldn't persuade her husband. It's no wonder you're angry, second brother. This matter is something that the two of us should do. We shouldn't have troubled second brother. Aye. Shi Yumei was at a loss for words, but her tears continued to flow. She hurriedly lifted her handkerchief to wipe her tears. Yumei. Wang quickly held her hand and patted it gently, comforting her. Silly girl. What's there to cry about? Your brother won't mind. Don't be sad. This is just a small matter. Sangwon watched from the side with mixed feelings. She couldn't help but sigh. It was really good to have a family that was firm on her side. Otherwise, people like Shi Yumei and her husband would have been in dire straits long ago. Fengju. Hurry up and say something. Wang Shi glared at him. Shi Fengju could only suppress the sullenness in his heart and said gently, Big sister, don't cry. Look, you've made mother sad again. I didn't say that I wouldn't help you. Mother is right, this isn't worth anything. I just feel that brother-in-law is a little too disappointing. Shi Yumei's crying stopped abruptly. She lowered her head and was speechless for a moment. After a while, she raised her head and said seriously, Second brother, don't worry. If he becomes an official in the future, I won't let him be ungrateful. I'll make him repay the Shi family well. Shi Fengju thought to himself, I'm not counting on that. Counting on him to repay me? It's going to rain from the sky soon. Besides, if someone like him can pass the exam, big sister thinks too highly of him. There's no need to repay him, Shi Fengju smiled faintly and said. Our Shi family doesn't need to rely on this. As long as he treats you well in the future, that's enough. That's true. He didn't abandon me in such a difficult time, so he definitely won't in the future. Shi Yumei hurriedly said with a smile. Shi Fengju was speechless. He's not a fool. Why would he abandon you now? Then he'll just have to wait and drink the northwest wind. If he manages to make a name for himself in the future, then it's hard to say. However, Shi Fengju didn't dare to say this in front of Shi Yumei. If he did, it would be tantamount to stabbing her heart with a knife. Shi Fengju flipped to the second page and raised his eyebrows slightly. He said straightforwardly, We'll prepare the New Year's gifts for the elders in the clan. The names on this page don't have the surname run. And these things, such as the 4 treasures of the study, calligraphy and painting, who are they for? Shi Yumei was stunned. She lowered her eyes and said softly, These are for your brother-in-law's friends in Mengxian. Your brother-in-law said that we should prepare a gift for them too. No. Before Shi Fengju could say anything, Wang's expression changed and she said angrily, It's those scoundrels again. I don't think there's any point in befriending them. It's better to break all ties. Mother, how can you say that? Shi Yumei was anxious. Why not? Wang said angrily. I think those people are teaching our son-in-law the wrong things. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought him to those brothels. Yume, I don't want to nag at you, but there are some things that you have to act like a wife. You can't just let him do whatever he wants. That's what I think too, Shifengju said firmly. It's right to be filial to the elders, but I don't think I should be the one to take care of these relationships between friends, right? I'll really become his slave then. Thinking about it, it did make sense. Sure, Yume's lips moved, but she couldn't say anything. She could only shut her mouth and accept it. Then it's settled. Wang made the final decision and said to Sangwon, Wan Yang, you'll have to work harder. Ask the purchasing department to prepare a gift and send it to Mengxian later. Wang Shi sighed. She also felt aggrieved. The Shi family was representing the Ren family to send New Year's gifts to the elders of the Ren family. No matter how she thought about it, it felt awkward. Yes, mother. Sangwon stood up and agreed. She went out together with Shifengju. Coincidentally, Zhuang Weixian had something to discuss with Shifengju. So Shifengju changed his clothes and went out. He asked Sangwon to pass the list to the housekeeper in the outer courtyard. Sangwon smiled and agreed. Seeing that Shifengju had left, Sangwon said to Luya and Xingji, Old mistress and young master rejected young mistress's reply. Who knows, young mistress might come to find trouble with me later. Be smart and don't say anything when she comes. I think I should avoid her for now. Xingji and Luya both smiled and said, Yes. Luya sighed again for no reason. Eldest Missy is actually quite pitiful. There you go again. What nonsense are you talking about? Sangwon chided her. It's true. Luya said. A woman is afraid of marrying the wrong man. This saying is true. If you ask me, our young mistress is lucky to have such a good husband like young master. That's right, Xingji also smiled and said. Young master dotes on young mistress more and more. Who in the household doesn't know this? You two are so free to talk about me here. Hurry up and get to work. Sangwon could not help but laugh and scold them. Just as they were talking, they heard a young servant greeting her from outside. Eldest Missy, you're here. The expressions of the three people in the warm room changed. Sangwon said, Just say that I'm not here. Hurry up and get out. Luya hurriedly ran out and saw Yume walking in while saying, And where's your young mistress? Is she in the room? Eldest Missy. Luya secretly felt lucky and hurriedly stopped the young servant who was about to speak. She went forward and greeted with a smile. Eldest Missy, you're here. Unfortunately, our young mistress just went out. Went out. Yume raised her eyebrows in disbelief. Where did she go? Luya shook her head and smiled. This servant also doesn't know. This servant finished her work and young mistress had already gone out. Is eldest Missy looking for young mistress for something? Yume snorted and said unhappily. If not for something, why would I come here? Since she's not here, then forget it. When she comes back, tell her to wait for me in the room. Send someone to Banana Courtyard to tell me that I have something important to discuss with her. Yes. Luya hurriedly agreed and sent Yume out. Young mistress. Luya watched Yume walk away before returning to the room and said with a smile. Although you managed to fool her, what if eldest Missy finds out that you lied to her? Who knows what kind of trouble she'll cause? Sangwon smiled and said, I'll go out from the back door and walk around. It won't be considered lying to her. If she saw her, it would be even more troublesome. She didn't know how to deal with her. Wang and Shifengju could say a few words in the position of the family head, but even so, they still had to take care of her feelings. How could she refute her in front of her? It would be strange if she bought it. As Sangwon spoke, she asked someone to bring the lynx cloak and put it on. Xingji smiled and said, But where are you going on such a cold day? Oh right, second Missy, third Missy, fourth Missy, and fifth Missy are enjoying the plum blossoms and barbecuing at Qingying Pavilion. Why don't young mistress go and join in the fun? You can just say that you're concerned about your sisters-in-law and want to take a look. That's right, that's right. Luya also smiled and said, That's a good idea. This morning, second Missy and the others asked you for all kinds of fresh meat, seasonings, charcoal, barbecue rack, and iron skewers. Let's go and take a look. Sangwon also smiled and agreed. She left Xingji to look after the room, and went out from the back door with Luya and the two maidservants. They went to the plum blossom forest to look for Shi Yuzhen and Shirlian. Shirlian's leg injury had already healed. The sisters hadn't seen each other for a long time, so they gathered together to eat and play. When they saw Sangwon, they hurriedly greeted her with a smile, "Sister-in-law," and stood up to greet her. "You guys really know how to enjoy food. I could smell the aroma from afar." Sangwon couldn't help but smile. Shi Yuzhen smiled and said, "It's all thanks to sister-in-law's fresh beef and venison. Sister-in-law, you came at the right time. We just started roasting the best meat." You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.